the everyday Hogwarts player. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 451 Confused Memory. In the dark basement, the box containing Peter Pettigrew emitted a ray of white light when Ron mentioned the story of Momotaro. Like the light of a movie theater projected onto a screen, the mottled stone wall became flat, and the figures of Ron and Harry appeared. A purple sofa suddenly appeared out of thin air, and Ryan sat cross-legged on it. Penelope and Kate also sat on Ryan's left and right with curious looks on their faces. Is this the surprise you mentioned, little brat? Penelope and Kate looked at the image on the wall. Next, please watch Harry Potter and the Dark Lord. Ryan cleared his throat and waved his hand gently. A wooden table filled with snacks and drinks appeared in front of them. And on the wall, that is, in the Black House, the conversation between Ron and Harry also came to a critical point. Harry, the magic level of the person in that world is about the same as yours, so why can he control the Pluto dragon? Ron's question was like a flash of lightning, bringing a moment of clarity to Harry's dark thoughts. Ron, give me Doraemon. Turn to the first few pages where Luke Skywalker feeds Momotaro to Pluto dragon. Harry remembered the scene that flashed by when Ron turned the page just now. Therein might lie the means of defeating that Harry after all. The prerequisite for rejection and acceptance is that he must be the winner. Now is the time to verify. The villain Dr. Sabo was able to summon the Pluto dragon because of his strong hatred, which was so strong that he was willing to abandon his own life and destroy the entire inner Earth world. The effect of Luke's Momotaro rice balls was discovered by Dr. Sabo. Let me see. In the end, Luke relied on love to resolve Dr. Sabo's hatred, and found the right time to let the temporarily inactive Pluto dragon eat Momotaro's rice balls. Pluto dragon. His face looked grim, as if he was performing some advanced black magic that required negative emotions. Slightly. Whether someone turns evil depends on the person. Some people will destroy the world after turning evil, but some people just smooth their hair, put on a second-hand suit, and dance awkwardly on the street. Even though he was evil, all he wanted was to monopolize the mirror world and drive out the only intelligent life, Harry, who broke in from the outside world. Maybe it's because all the negative emotions are fed to the Pluto dragon. Harry, do you really not need me to accompany you in? Ron asked again. No, the me in that world became visible because of my appearance. There's only him in the whole world, and he only has that world. Your entry may also lead to the emergence of another Ron in that world. It's difficult to deal with me alone, let alone you. Harry curled his lips. In that opposite world, there is no intelligent life except the mirror beasts. That Harry was only born because he became aware of the mirror world and even accidentally entered it. This time he went in, it was more like a recovery than a victory over him. That him is the dark side of his heart. Harry somehow knew it the first time he saw him. Harry ignored Ron, who mistakenly thought Harry thought he was great and was grinning from ear to ear. He walked straight to the floor-to-ceiling mirror at the door and reached in. This time, he no longer needed to constantly destroy mirrors to find the passage that channels in his heart. In other words, a wizard who has entered the mirror once will learn the magic of entering the opposite world inside the mirror. This kind of magic is more like what Tonks said, something innate and almost instinctive. A chill, as if falling into cold water, flashed across his body. The next second, a mansion with decoration and layout completely opposite to the Black family. Harry looked ahead, at the floor-to-ceiling mirror in the mirror world, and he stepped gently into it again. In the opposite world, he can travel through space through mirrors, or even through the surface of a lake that can reflect his own image in a broad sense, and emerge from another mirror. At this moment, Harry emerged from the mirror of the puddles on the roadside. What appeared before him was a ruin. The left side of the top floor room had been blown up. He knew where this was. This is Godric's Hollow, the old house of the Potter family. A place he had never been to in the real world. And that guy is here too. He seemed to possess all the memories from birth to the present, including those he had forgotten and sunk into the sea of subconsciousness. When he first entered the mirror world, he was pulled here. Then there was a disastrous defeat. With a harsh sound of metal grinding, the rusty iron door opened. Harry looked at the figure behind the iron gate as if he were looking in a mirror. Hello, me. I have it all. Are you so fascinated by this dead world? Harry, who was supposed to be his negative incarnation, said these words calmly. It's like telling a friend you've known for a long time a warning from your heart. Sure enough, you don't know. You want a sneak attack, use the dark spell you invented. Yes, the mirror reflects reality because of the refraction of light, but you forgot one thing. I am you too. I also know the solution to that spell. Come out. My anger. He, who was calm just now, changed his expression. Harry never imagined that he would see an expression attracted on his face. As the words fell, he waved his wand, and the water vapor in the sky condensed together to form a smooth horizontal surface. A head emerged from the plane. Red scales, golden mane around the neck, black gold eyes, and a terrifying roar that could huge, boil, and make the wizard's magic power go out of control. In your memory, how many people are there in our dormitory? Harry looked calmly at the head of Plutosaurus that was getting closer and closer to him. 7. He replied impatiently. So, which ones? Harry smiled with confidence. Want to delay time? No problem, it's invincible. Ron, Neville, Michael, Terry, Anthony, me, and Harry, who had the lightning scar on the right side of his forehead, covered his forehead with his hands. This is why I came here, at this golden time when I'm about to get engaged. Harry looked at himself calmly. Chapter 452 2 becomes 1. In the British region near the Arctic Circle, in the summer, when the weather is good, the sky is sometimes bright even at 9 o'clock. This is no exception in the mirror world. At 8 o'clock, the sun was still hanging in the northeast. A nearly 100-foot-long dragon that looked like a lion with wings growing from its ribs and covered with red scales was shining brightly under the equally bright red sun temperament, stood facing each other. The missing part of my memory is the reason why you must come here. Harry in the mirror world frowned. To get the resurrection stone, and even to use it to revive Mom, I need your help. Only I can revive my mother. But I'm not strong enough. Harry said frankly he is very confident, even when he's negative, he is still himself and the mother's resurrection is Mama Taro Riceball who conquered the Pluto dragon. You need me, Harry. In the mirror world thought for a moment. You won't lie. What do I need to do? Harry in the mirror world sighed again. As the hostility disappeared, the Pluto dragon in front of him, with its fangs bared and staring at Harry, also turned into black smoke and disappeared into the sky. Come back, me. Harry stretched out his right hand. Sound was heard. Everything around was like shattered glass, revealing jagged black gaps. Harry opened his eyes and found himself back in the black house in the mirror world. He looked at the floor-length mirror opposite him. Ron was putting his face against it, as if trying to find any trace of him. Sirius, who wanted to come in, Ron finally couldn't bear it anymore. He pressed his entire face against the mirror, trying to break through the invisible barrier and get in like Harry. Then, a warm and delicate hand pressed his head and pushed him out. As he pulled out his wand in fear, a familiar voice brought him back to his senses. Ron, didn't I tell you not to stand in front of the mirror? Just wait for me to come back in the room. Harry wiped the hand that had just pushed Ron's face with disgust. I'm just worried about you. Ron came up to him with a smile, seemingly forgetting that Harry had just disliked him. Goodbye, luckily you didn't pop up when I was talking to you. Otherwise, if you are negative, I don't think you will have the patience to listen to me. Harry said unhappily. Such as asking Ryan to take care of him, Harry would probably want to strangle this troublemaker to death. Ah, you didn't use that. I later summoned the Phoenix to defeat the Pluto dragon. In a world opposite to reality, two Haras held wands, motionless. One summoned the legendary Pluto dragon. The other summoned the golden phoenix that had never appeared. To do is say a few words and it's done. Ron hung his face, as if his birthday present had been cancelled. Hey. After all, it's me. No matter how bad I am, there are some things I still care about. Plus I know I won't lie. I knew it, why would the first task be so difficult? Harry breathed a sigh of relief. On the other side, in the basement of Smith Castle, Kate suddenly frowned when she saw the image projected on the stone wall made of the projector soul of Peter Pettigrew's humanity. Task. Wait. The Harry Potter Beyond, a space odyssey that we watched recently suddenly had a bad ending. Maybe it was because of this. This so-called mission must be done by you, little brat. Kate rolled her eyes. Penelope didn't care much at first and just wanted to watch the show. But the look in Kate's eyes only made her clear her throat and pretended to glare at Ryan. Yet, this is so boring. After just a few words of conversation, Harry surrendered inexplicably. Penelope complained after thinking for a moment. This is only the second mission, and Harry have fought before, but I haven't edited it yet. This is a preview version. The part you are watching is the literary drama. I thought Harry would find out later that Harry's memory was without me, and the missions. But Ron ruined it. Doraemon, Summoner's Kingdom was supposed to be released on the 25th in Diagon Alley. Who knew that Ron would win the privilege of seeing it first? This is not something I did behind the scenes. There are only 3 vacancies in our Skywalker Alchemy workshop in the whole of Europe. Who knew Ron would come early? Ryan said a lie that he himself couldn't believe. Just as Kate's little round face began to swell and her eyes became even rounder, fortunately, the picture on the stone wall attracted their attention. Harry, can you really? I hope we won't encounter the magic in that world again, the Mirror Beast world. Unless intelligent life, that is, us in the real world, breaks in, they will wake up from the mirror of the mirror world. And in this way, I didn't actually enter the mirror world. I just used it as a transit station. Bros and Ginny, Harry muttered to himself, reaching his hand into the mirror as if he was touching something. How? Do you know so much? Ron looked at Harry suspiciously. The information I gave him is that he is the first truly intelligent life in the mirror world. Look at Ron, his hands still groping in the mirror. Ron, are you sure Ginny is resting in her room at this time? Harry looked at Ron hesitantly. Although he was a little unfamiliar with the mirror traveling in the real world for the first time, he was not able to find it. Of course. Ginny stayed in her bedroom all day and never went out. Ron said with a little anger because of Harry's suspicion. Harry wanted to retort, but, wait, it's right here. But Harry began to back away. When his hands left the mirror, a red-haired girl in a golden dress fell into Harry's arms. Chapter 453 Bill Weasley. The usually peaceful village of Outery St. Catchpole has recently become bustling with people coming and going. Some guys dressed very strangely began to gather in the village, as if there was a masquerade party going on nearby. Some curious residents asked around, but all they got was some gibberish. The savior was engaged to a girl from the village. What nonsense. Isn't there only one savior? Maybe cultists. Moreover, each person's appearance was very strange. Although no means of transportation was seen, they were seen walking out from behind a tree, a fence, or bush. I doubt whether they have dug some tunnel in the village. And today, in the afterglow of the setting sun, he set his sights on another weird-looking guy. Although he was a man, he had long hair tied in a ponytail and an earring with something like a small fan hanging on it. In old Jack's eyes, his dress and appearance seemed even more bizarre than those of the previous guys. In the middle of summer, he was wearing a black leather jacket with a metal zipper of unknown purpose, and the surface of his boots seemed to be covered with many strange scales. You are not welcome in our village. Old Jack waved his cane at the man. It's me. The man turned his head. Wait, it's you? The red-haired kid. Old Jack put down his cane. Old Jack knew the man. His name is Bill. Bill Weasley. Bill's family lived outside the village. Children in their family: the eldest son, Bill, the 2 twins, the 4th and 5th sons, and their father often come to the village. Although Bill's family lived outside the village, in old Jack's eyes, they were real villagers. It's you, Bill. You have to be careful. There are some weird guys coming to the village recently. Old Jack said with a kind look on his face. I started chatting with Bill about where he had been over the years. I suggest you choose a job closer to home. Look at what those Egyptians have done to your appearance and clothes. I'm not planning to leave this time I come back. I was assigned abroad before, and now I'm transferred back to the UK headquarters to work as a clerk. Bill greeted old Jack familiarly. Then you should pay attention to your dress. Now that you are back in England, you should have the taste and desire of a British gentleman. Old Jack looked at the young man in front of him with disdain and a little heartache. He used to be such a good guy, but now he looks like this. Old Jack, who believed that Britain was supreme, once again reaffirmed his mind that there were only monsters and demons outside, and decided to break his grandson's legs if he should go to work abroad. Even though Bill had been away from the village for so long, he was still very skilled in translating everything in the wizarding world into information that Muggles could understand and communicate with old Jack. He grew up here, and this unexpected communication actually made him relax. Because he returned to England for one thing, to postpone Harry and Ginny's engagement. He thought it was too early. But he also knew that his parents would definitely oppose him, and he felt a little anxious about it. Fortunately, What he said to old Jack made him realize something. That is, he could be wrong. Because his parents and Ginny agreed to it. He might have been prejudiced, just like old Jack had no reason to think that the wizards who came to the village were bad people, highlighted because old Jack had watched him grow up. Perhaps, if he just spends some time with Harry and becomes familiar with him, he will agree that's what Bill thought. But his thought only lasted until 8 in the evening, because, when he hurried back to the burrow and came to Ginny, who had tried on dress after dress and returned to her bedroom, a person emerged from the mirror and grabbed her away. The figure was so easy to recognize, even for Bill, who hadn't returned to his proper place for a long time. He is Harry Potter. Because of the news about Harry and Ginny, Bill, who collected all the daily profit with Harry's photo, dared to swear that he was definitely not wrong. He was determined to stop this wedding. Even Merlin can't stop him. On the other side, after some communication with Ginny. "So, Bill saw me just now," Harry said. "It's over. Bill has always had a prejudice against you. This time you took Ginny away before the engagement party again." And Bill, Ron wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. In his mind, a scene had already emerged in which everyone except his brother Bill was in a room, harshly questioning Harry for information. Ginny also looked depressed. She hopes that this engagement will be blessed by everyone in her family. Bill is no exception. Is he the same as Percy before? Harry looked at Ron and Ginny as the old Percy. On the contrary, he is very adventurous. Ron shook his head. Then why would he be against me and Ginny? Harry was completely confused. Ginny is the only sister in our family. We all love her very much. Percy, Fred and George know what kind of person you are. Charlie respects Ginny's own wishes more. But Bill, he's more like my mother, in terms of Ginny. I'm doing this for your own good, Bill used to say. Ron curled his lips. In his opinion, Bill was good in every way, but when facing his sister, Bill became a different person. Is it true? Harry couldn't help but swallow and looked at Ginny. Yes. Ginny nodded with a bitter face. Open the door. A strange male voice suddenly came out and the door opened. I told you, Harry is a little nervous and uncomfortable. Ron is the only one in this room. Your story about Harry emerging from the mirror and taking Ginny away is complete nonsense. If Ginny was here, I'd eat my shoe. This was serious. He stopped Bill with his body, looking very, as if he thought Bill was being unreasonable. But when he turned his head, he saw from the corner of his eye another figure with fiery red hair in Harry's arms. Why so fast? Ron seemed frightened, angry and... Have you forgotten about the flu network? Bill pushed Sirius away from him and turned his head. You are the Harry who lied to my sister, Harry Potter. Chapter 454 Mirror World. The farce was over quickly. Because just after Bill asked for the flu number of Black's house in a very strange tone, Mr. and Mrs. Weasley, who felt something was wrong, also rushed over. As soon as they emerged from the fireplace in the basement kitchen, they rushed to the 3rd floor, to Harry's bedroom door. Because they knew that their son was very opposed to this marriage. Bill must have come here to look for Harry. 10 minutes later, Bill was pulled aside by Mrs. Weasley. Why do you have the same temper as my brothers back then? You should learn to let go. Ginny is not a child anymore. She is a student of Hogwarts. Bill listened to Mrs. Weasley's loud reprimand with an unconvinced look on his face. Harry, don't be nervous. I was also closely guarded by Molly's brothers back then, but in the end, I eloped with Molly, Mr. Weasley comforted. Before Harry could answer, he became excited again and asked, Harry, Bill said you took Ginny away from the mirror. Is it this mirror? Can you let me go back this way later? Mr. Weasley was dressed in a solemn black wizard robe with gold embroidered on the cuffs. But he was still the same as Harry had seen him before, lively and full of childlike curiosity about everything he didn't understand. Harry had a hard time explaining the magic to Mr. Weasley. Because there's so much to say behind this magic. The story begins a few days ago when he returned to the Dursleys and felt something looking at him in the mirror. When Harry told his story, Elsa, including Bill who was scolded and Mrs. Weasley who scolded Bill, couldn't help but prick everyone up their ears. There is another world in the mirror, which is a concept that subverts the magical world. Is there a Pluto dragon inside? Charlie must be willing to sacrifice everything to go to the mirror world. Bill also regained his senses and thoughts of his brother. As the oldest brother, in the Weasley family, besides the youngest Ginny, the one he cares about most is Charlie. Ron, who was the least concerned in Bill's eyes, was very about this. Why don't we? This was said by Mr. Weasley and Sirius, both of them saying this almost at the same time. No. Mrs. Weasley, who had just sat down after scolding for being tired, yelled and stood up with a bright light in her eyes. I absolutely will not allow. Didn't you hear what Harry said? There is another self in there, your evil side. Harry, because he's a good kid, and the evil side is easy to deal with. Forget about you adults. Mrs. Weasley yelled at her husband and cousin. Sirius. Mrs. Weasley was particularly angry, and she could see that the children's eyes lit up because of what they said. Even the seemingly steady Bill is the same. I registrated. My mom still calls me Nymphadora. I'm still a child. Tonks, whose hair had turned violet, jumped out from behind the door. Behind her was Lupin, who looked doting. What kind of child are you? You're about to marry Remus. Sirius looked at Mrs. Weasley, who was about to lose her temper, and said quickly, Mom, I'm still a child. Ron said bravely when everyone understood else and didn't dare to do it. He raised his hand excitedly, as if he was holding the Quidditch World Cup. And he was the winner. Ron Weasley. Ron was pulled aside by Mrs. Weasley. Harry knew what kind of person Ron was and wanted to cover Ron's mouth in advance, but was stopped by Ginny, with a confused look on his face. This way, Mom and the others won't think about you pulling me over here. Even if I think about it later, I won't be angry. Ginny covered her mouth, giggled, and whispered in Harry's ear. You've passed. Bill said coldly beside Harry. He just saw that Harry listened to Ginny very much. When Bill walked out the door, Ginny gave Harry a yes sign. Why would they have me? Harry was halfway through his sentence when he realized it. In the eyes of adults, after discovering the dangerous mirror world with the Pluto dragon inside, he went there alone, but Ron stood up bravely and attracted attention. And Bill happened to see him listening to Ginny. You've thought of everything. Harry's throat was slightly dry. Ginny winked playfully, kissed Harry on the cheek, and then skipped out of Harry's bedroom. I've remained single, Sirius told Harry after everyone else had left the room. He has a handsome face, excellent grades, and a wealthy family. In school, including until now, there are too many scheming girls around him now. He only had eyes for his younger brother, Regulus, who slept in his almost bedroom all day. If it weren't for Regulus, he would have planned to use the Black House as the place where Harry and Ginny would get engaged. He will even pass this family down to Harry. Mirror world. Harry Potter touched it first. Penelope asked Ryan in Smith Castle, thousands of miles away. Her attention just now was focused on the Harry Potter and the otherworldly adventure, which was cut off in the middle. Only now did she notice this world that had been released by Ryan from the town of Axminster in Devon not long ago and had been integrated with the existing world. As far as I know, the mirror world is divided into 3 layers. The first layer is a reflection of the existing real world. Everything inside is the opposite of the real world. The second level belongs to the mirror beasts. They feed on human thoughts and living in the mirror world of the mirror world. The third layer belongs to the opposite side of the human heart. It has no concrete entity. The entry of intellectual life will revive the other you in this layer, thus entering the first layer. Did the Potter brat make it to the second floor? I'm talking about the real world. Kate asked, stroking her round, almost invisible chin. Large-scale TV show Death Eater's Wilderness Survival. Ryan said with a smile. It will definitely be interesting then, thanks to my classmates Jaya Ashikin and Jiang Dongzihu for their monthly tickets, and other classmates for their recommendations and subscriptions. Chapter 455, Summoning Pluto Dragon. I'm ready. Harry stretched out his hands and raised his head high. It was just a simple sentence, but 2 voices came out of Harry's mouth at the same time. The 2 sounds blend together to create a strange beauty. In a dimension invisible to the people around him, Harry's outstretched hands were clasped by another pair of hands, followed by a dark figure with no visible face. At the end of the conversation, the 2 figures overlapped. Ho! A loud roar came from the pool in front of Harry. A huge red head popped out from the calm water, the thick horns that were tangled together to form a crown-like shape, the mane surrounding the neck, the dark golden eyes, and the figures around it that were barely able to stand because of the roar, all proved its identity: the strongest ancient dragon species, Pluto Dragon. It seems to be true. Dumbledore gripped the Elder Wand tightly, looking at the huge figure flying into the air and towering into the clouds. His hands trembled slightly, and along with it his magic power, which was as vast as the ocean. He glanced at Hagrid in surprise. Among the 3 figures still standing, there was him. You know, even Riddle couldn't help but hold his chest and bend over slightly. But Hagrid, like his summoner Harry, acted as if nothing had happened. Riddle looked at Harry grimly, his fingers clenched so tightly that they looked slightly pale. "Come back." The mixed voice came out of Harry's mouth again. The Pluto dragon, which was showing its pitch-black fangs and preparing to announce its existence with a roar once again, turned into flying smoke the moment the words fell. "Are you all right?" Harry's voice returned to normal. Even his double pupils, which were not very obvious under the lenses, returned to their original appearance. But even though he said this, he only looked at Ginny, touching her face worriedly and holding her in his arms. "Harry. Do it again. I want to see the child too." Beetle-like eyes. Even when Norberto was born, she couldn't compare to him. Behind him, Charlie, who was sitting next to Bill, had the same expression. Harry felt a little rude, meeting Ginny's brother for the first time under these circumstances. "Harry, do it again. I haven't seen enough of Percy's stupid behavior just now. He looked like he just peed his pants." There was no doubt that this was Fred and George. They also fell to the ground and laughed at Percy, who was sweating not far away. "Harry, how did you defeat that one of yours? I mean, how can you still talk to Pluto Dragon?" Ron stood up with the help of the table, his face pale, still trembling. "Harry, how dare you?" Sirius' eyes were red and he looked scared. Before facing this behemoth, he optimistically thought that Harry had defeated Voldemort head-on, so what did the Harry in the mirror world matter? But now, he only felt fear and anger. Terrified at the prospect of never seeing his godson again. Angry at his godson's recklessness. For the first time I hated how much Harry was like James. Just as bold, he likes to fight alone. When he first entered Hogwarts, James liked to face Snape alone, as if to make himself more worthy of Lily. But after losing more than they won, Sirius and the others began to follow James all day. What followed was a long battle between Snape and the other four. Looking at Harry like this, Sirius fell into memories again. "Kid, you can just not look in the mirror. Why take such a big risk?" Mrs. Weasley also had red eyes. She walked towards Harry and hugged Harry and Ginny in her arms. Mr. Weasley also stood up. He was very excited and wanted to say something like "do it again" like Hagrid and the others, but because of Mrs. Weasley, he stood there awkwardly. "Weasley, something to do. Don't do that, Dad. There are so many people here." Fred and George cleverly ran behind Bill and Charlie. "Isn't this a good thing? I just noticed that Dumbledore felt a little uncomfortable when facing the Pluto dragon. We're sure to win this time," said Tonks, perhaps to suit the occasion. Tonks' hair turned a fiery red because not only Bill, but other Weasley members also came here, because of the things in the mirror world. On the day before the engagement, members of the Order of the Phoenix and the Weasley family all came to 10 Rose Lane. Tomorrow is Harry and Ginny's engagement day. Should we hold a celebration party as well? How about setting off the magic fireworks? Then the sky will be full of meteors. It will be so fun. The person who said this was Daedalus Digg, Dean's guardian in the magical world. Better say goodbye. The last time Voldemort fell, it was because of your mess that Millicent Bagnall resigned. Professor McGonagall said coldly. She was originally the Minister of Magic on our side. As a result, that idiot Fudge came to power. I don't want Ms. Bones to resign because of this again. Mad-Eye Moody's magic eye and his normal eye were both staring at D-Jet. He put his hands in his pockets, holding his wand tightly, as if he was going to give D-Jet a hard blow if he said anything stupid again. "I think maybe we can summon the Pluto dragon directly from the surface of the North Sea when Voldemort is resurrected," Kingsley said excitedly. "This is too dangerous. Harry should stay in the safest place." Snape narrowed his eyes, as if he wanted to kill Kingsley with his eyes. Harry found it very noisy. "The night before the engagement party, I had planned to go to bed early. But unexpectedly, after lunch, Sirius opened a portal and took him to number 10 Rose Road. The place was crowded with people he knew or didn't know. He finally saw the entire Weasley family because Charlie Weasley, the legendary figure that Gryffindor always mentioned, was here too. When they first met, Harry was almost scared. Dark brown skin, dense freckles, and a broad face that looks like a good guy make up this Weasley who is completely unlike Weasley. But what surprised Harry most was the large, shiny scar on Charlie's muscular arm caused by the fire, and the thick calluses and blisters on his hands. Hagrid and Professor McGonagall also arrived. Even Snape and Riddle. Harry was not surprised by Dumbledore's appearance, as he seemed to think highly of him. But what Harry didn't expect was that in the first scene of their meeting, Dumbledore asked Harry to show him everything in the mirror world. He originally thought that these people had come to attend his engagement party a day in advance. So, there was the scene just now and the subsequent conversations. Weasley's arms, recalled thanks to Yuchi Jinine for the monthly ticket and other classmates for the recommendation. Chapter 456 Frankness. In a living room of pure color where the stairs, floor, walls, chairs, and even the chandelier on the ceiling all seemed to be one, the people who had just been outside were sitting around a crystal-clear round table. However, judging from expressions, it can be seen that the conversation just now seemed very unpleasant. Especially Mrs. Weasley, who was looking at Dumbledore angrily, as if he had committed some unforgivable sin. However, at the other end of the table, the scene was different. Tonks was deforming her nose, to Ginny's amusement. Each time she squeezed her eyes shut tightly, revealing the same pained expression she had shown in the foyer of the old Blake house. Her nose swelled up like a bird's beak and looked exactly like Snape's nose, then shrank back to the size of a mushroom, and a large mass of nasal hairs sprouted from each nose. Fred and George were also there to give Tonks advice. Judging from the notes in their hands, it seemed that they found some inspiration in Tonks. But suddenly Tonks stopped changing, and Fred and George put away their notebooks. Ginny suppressed a smile as well. All because of Mrs. Weasley's roar, "Dumbledore! Why let Harry and the others get involved? They are not members of the Order of the Phoenix. Some of them have only just entered Hogwarts." "Bill, that's right, Ginny's roar still a child. I think the engagement needs to be cancelled too." "Mrs. Weasley, shut up." "Bill Weasley." Ginny glared at him. "Bill, you're such a jerk. Molly, you may not have noticed one thing, that is, most of our information about Voldemort actually comes from Harry's dream, and the rest is also verified based on the information Harry gave us. It would not be wise to bypass Harry and the others." Dumbledore folded his hands, leaned his elbows on the table, and stared at Mrs. Weasley. "They are still children," Mrs. Weasley said in a much quieter voice. "I'm Harry's godfather, I think he is qualified to know this." Sirius raised his head and nodded at Harry. "Yes, Molly. Death Eaters don't care if you're a child or not. I think they all have to know that, plus some serious training. This is what's best for them." Moody, who is always tough, took a sip of the wine in his kettle. "Potter needs safety, but not the kind of safety you're talking about. He should know everything and stay safely in the back." Snape raised his eyebrows. Mrs. Weasley, everyone saw saying this, she suddenly turned to her husband, Arthur. Without looking at his wife, he put his glasses back on carefully before speaking. "You can't deny that Harry and the others have guessed it even if we didn't say anything, Molly." Phileas Severus was there, too. "Plus his performance today, I think he has the level to know the news," Professor McGonagall said after pursing her lips. "Well," Mrs. Weasley said, taking a deep breath and looking around, hoping to get support, but no one responded. "Well, it seems that my opinion will be rejected. I just want to say one thing, we cannot let the children be affected by this war. They just need to grow up healthily, just like I chose to devote myself to my family during the First Wizard War instead of joining the Order of the Phoenix, the hope for the future of the wizarding world. What questions do you have about Voldemort?" Seeing Molly sit down, Dumbledore asked softly, "Is it true that he will be resurrected in a year? I heard from Ron Weasley." Mrs. Weasley looked betrayed. "Will this affect our exams? I mean the OWLT, overall wizarding test?" Percy asked, raising his hand. "Good boy." Mrs. Weasley wiped her eyes. "Model student Percy." "Molly, Harry really knows more than we thought." Mrs. Weasley, who was still a little unconvinced, and looked at Harry again. "Yes, you may have known the secret of Voldemort's immortality. That's right, it's not some advanced black magic. It's just that no one dares to be so bold and be cruel to yourself. I can only say to you, Harry, that your current power may be able to defeat him, or even trap him, such as in that magical mirror world, but to truly kill him, only Riddle can do it. Voldemort's actions, while foolish, truly made him nearly invincible. You can be defeated, but there is always a chance to make a comeback." Dumbledore sighed. "Did you also allow his resurrection? I mean, he can only be killed if he's resurrected." Harry asked next. Mrs. Weasley looked as if she were doubting her life. Sirius was very proud, and if Lupin hadn't held him back, he would have probably made some sarcastic remarks. He had always been a little annoyed with Mrs. Weasley, because Mrs. Weasley treated Harry as her own son and thought that she and Harry were closer than he and Harry were. Forks are strongest. Dumbledore stood up and looked towards the North Sea. Chapter 457 Little Bump 3 Grindelwald. In the mansion that was almost impossible to build with Muggle means, the living room was extremely quiet at this moment. Dumbledore's words made gasp. Those present knew that they had deliberately allowed Voldemort to be resurrected, and they all avoided talking about this topic. Not to mention Bill and the others who were completely unaware. But just when almost everyone lowered their heads, kept their mouths shut, and didn't know what to do, a trembling hand was raised. Professor Dumbledore, who exactly is Grindelwald? From what I heard, he seems to be more powerful than you. It was Ron. Harry and Ginny beside them also agreed. Until Dumbledore mentioned this person again, they all thought he was a foreign scoundrel. You don't know. Even Dumbledore stood there for a moment. He looked at Harry. Harry, you can't possibly not know. Studying magic. During your first year, you heard Voldemort mention this name in the room on the 4th floor corridor, Dumbledore said hesitantly. Is it him? That sounds so familiar. Harry shrugged. It turned out to be the guy that Voldemort thought that by giving him the wand he could contain Dumbledore. Achieving great success in alchemy with his partner Nicholas Flamel. Ron suddenly repeated the words on Dumbledore's chocolate frog. He also turned to look at Harry. It was you who first introduced me to Nicholas Flamel and the Philosopher's Stone. That's because Grindelwald's appearance was so clever. When I first saw Dumbledore's chocolate frog, I was surprised why the picture on it moved. Only made me pay attention to Nicholas Flamel. When Voldemort mentioned him, I was in front of Voldemort and didn't dare to be distracted at all, Harry replied. But how come you all know everything that happened to me in the secret room? 2. Harry narrowed his eyes. A sudden recollection made him discover this blind spot. And Professor McGonagall and Professor Snape who were present seemed to know the details. Harry had noticed, when Dumbledore had said that he couldn't have been unaware of Grindelwald, that they were the only ones who acted so well together. This is not Harry judging in a vacuum. He was already very good at observing people's expressions, and this became even more obvious after he merged with another him. Most importantly, neither Professor McGonagall nor Professor Snape had the slightest desire to hide it. Being caught peeping, even Dumbledore couldn't avoid embarrassment, and so did Professor McGonagall. Only Snape still had a dead look on his face, without the slightest change. Harry, do you remember the Philosopher's Stone left by the wizard from the moon? Dumbledore touched his broken nose. As I remember, he took the real Philosopher's Stone away. Harry tried his best to conceal it, controlling his expression, and said briefly because he didn't want to appear to know a lot about a moon after visiting Moon City, he was convinced that the guy who called himself a magician must also be from there. That fake Philosopher's Stone records all the scenes of your confrontation and battle with Voldemort. It's an instrument that records the surrounding influences and reproduces them. The technique is also very special and unique. Dumbledore exclaimed, Wait, what did I just hear? Mad-Eye Moody tapped his wooden leg. The wizard from the Leg Moon. This moon must be a nickname. Mr. Weasley almost shouted. Why, it seems like something is being hidden from us. Hedge's eyes widened. Did we miss so much during the time when the Order of the Phoenix was disbanded? DJ couldn't help but jump up. Everyone, this is not a pseudonym. According to our investigation, that person may really be from the moon. This is just speculation. How can there be a more advanced magical society than ours? We are the strongest. While others were still digesting Dumbledore's words, Kingsley, who had always acted the most calm, became restless. He always firmly believed that his country is the best. The country is his lover. He was willing to sacrifice everything for the British wizarding world. That's why he applied to join the Order of the Phoenix when it was being ostracized, and became a member. It's your intuition. Moody took another sip of the liquid in his water bottle. As the most powerful wizard among all the people present, except for Riddle, in his own opinion, he also has a thorough understanding of some of the powers possessed by that field. That wizard who calls himself a magician is like the moon in the water, totally untouchable. My intuition, which I am so proud of, is like wearing reading glasses when it comes to him. It can only be confirmed that it is related to the moon. Gave a thumbs up, but as to whether there are wizards living on the moon, I am quite sure there are. Before this, even if I have the ability to confirm through intuition whether there is a wizard on the moon. But somehow I just can't think of it like those guys who brag about reaching the moon. It's like a force deliberately let wizards who are capable of foreseeing this. For example, I subconsciously didn't think about it in this regard. Dumbledore was regarded still frightened that it was the second time he felt powerless, just like the last time he parted ways with Grindelwald. I definitely thought about it when I was a kid. There are so many wizarding stories about the moon, but after I matured, and even after I reached my current field, I never thought about it again. Dumbledore looked at Ron, who was looking at him, and answered the doubts written on Ron's face in advance. After that, I used my connections to investigate the magician. Although I didn't find any information about him. But I also found some clues in the United States. All fine. My intuition gave the same answer. Dumbledore took off the lens and wiped it. Harry, Ginny and Ron looked at each other. They all knew that Dumbledore was onto something. They went to the farm. And that farm is undoubtedly in the United States. Chapter 458, The Slow Giant. I knew it. Besides the United States, there is only Russia. They are the only two people in the Muggle world who have landed on the moon. Mr. Weasley almost jumped up. But no one was surprised, as they all knew that he was crazy about everything in the Muggle world. Dad, the Soviet Union didn't land on the moon. They just used a probe to bring back 300 grams of lunar rocks. Ron couldn't help but interrupted. He knew all this knowledge because he had once thought about bragging about it. After he went to Yuchang as a Ravenclaw, he had to appear professional and impeccable in order to cover up his lie, just like before. The premise that he said his wand was amazing was that it was very similar to the one that Ollivander had always displayed in the window. I always thought your going to Ravenclaw was just an accident. Mrs. Weasley actually burst into tears. She had always believed that Ron was able to go to Ravenclaw because of his friendship with Harry, and the Sorting Hat consulted Ron's strong wishes. When the news came that Ron had invented this spell, she also thought it was thanks to Harry. But Ron's performance just now, the smooth flow of his answers to the questions, undoubtedly proved that her son was a true Ravenclaw. Hey, Mom. Ron couldn't help but complain. The Americans may have relied on Muggle technology. They are cheating. If our Muggle government was more powerful, maybe we would be the ones living on the moon. Kingsley still hadn't recovered from his anger at being surpassed by wizards from other countries. I told you Voldemort's tactics won't work. Look. The Yankees have landed on the moon. I think if it weren't for Voldemort's interference, our Muggle government might have landed on the moon too. Even if we fail, we still have the Americans in front of him and drank it all. Your nickname is really correct. With Harry and Dumbledore around us, how could we fail? Sirius also laughed. Is it possible that the person we were talking about just now was Grindelwald? Tonks changed her chin into a pointed one like Draco and said mischievously. In our time, his status was like Voldemort's today. But what he brought to the wizarding world was innovation rather than destruction. Mad-Eye Moody was rarely sentimental, his remaining eye flickering with memories. Innovation. Isn't that good? I mean, wouldn't this be better? Why does it say on the chocolate frog that he is a dark wizard? And there is no title of Dark Lord. Ron was puzzled. In his opinion, what his father did before was innovation. That was done after that bastard Fudge came to power in order to subtly reduce Dumbledore's influence. Plus they have the nerve to do it. Sirius gestured rudely. Have you any shame? Harry looked at his godfather. At that time, the whole of Europe was swept up by Grindelwald's ideas. Many old-school purebloods fled to England. Ministries of magic in various countries, these purebloods, have all requested Dumbledore, who is still the Transfiguration professor at Hogwarts, to come out. Because Dumbledore is the only one who can stand up to him. As the Ministry of Magic expected, Dumbledore defeated Grindelwald, and the defeated Grindelwald imprisoned himself in Nurmengard, the prison he used to hold rebels. That's why the officials at the Ministry of Magic want Dumbledore as Minister of Magic. Wouldn't it be the same as if someone with their physical strength defeated Grindelwald in no time? But Dumbledore didn't agree. That's right, Hagrid. So, Dumbledore's greatest achievement, which was even recorded at the front of the chocolate frog card, was just brushed aside. It's the same thing in modern history of magic. Yes, the Ministry of Magic was not like this during Millicent Bagnall's tenure. Professor McGonagall glared at the culprit Diggle again. What is Grindelwald's philosophy? Harry asked curiously, and all wizards believe that only Dumbledore can defeat him. He thinks that Muggles are moving too fast. We wizards should unite first, and then conquer the Muggle world. What's even scarier is that this concept is still feasible. Muggle minds are too easy for wizards to manipulate. Dumbledore's eyes revealed a complicated look. Isn't this similar to Voldemort? He just thinks the superior ones are wizards. Voldemort is more detailed, pure-blood wizards are more advanced. Ron couldn't help but complain. Harry couldn't help feeling a little disappointed. Different. Voldemort is simply trying to be above everyone else. He doesn't understand or care about muggles, or hate, but Grindelwald doesn't have those emotions. He thinks muggles are powerful. Treat the muggles as an equal opponent. He did the same thing I did, showing wizards the terrible potential of muggles. It's just that the action plan is too presumptuous. Riddle, who had been silent all the time, couldn't help but speak. Now, he was used to talking about Voldemort and himself separately. Wizards are not a monolithic group. If every wizard unites and has only one action plan, they can indeed control muggles with magic. But it only takes one wizard to alert Muggle society. Since muggles have a destructive power far exceeding that of the wizarding world, the wizarding world will face a catastrophe. Fragmented, society will return to the Middle Ages, when wizards were scattered and set up camps in various places. Riddle said lightly. Yet, compared to us, muggles are like giants and a group of mortals holding weapons with complicated switches. Mortals can kill giants by pressing down their weapons at the same time. You can attack by just pressing part of it, but it won't be powerful enough to kill a giant. Moreover, some of these mortals were originally giants, so they don't worry at all that the giants will harm them. Others run faster than giants, but are afraid of failure. Some even make money from the derivatives dropped by giants, such as air. It would be better for them if the giants are alive. That giant is still very dull. Unless he is attacked by mortals, he will not notice them at all. In this case, the giant could not be killed by that weapon at all, Dumbledore said meaningfully. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 459, Perpetual Motion Machine Poppers Edition. Inside Smith Castle, there was silence in the deep basement. Unlike Ryan, who is a time traveler and has an amazing desire to pry into the private lives of these original characters, Penelope does not have much curiosity. The gossipy Kate wasn't too interested because she knew what Dumbledore and the others were going to talk about next. The result was that Kate and Penelope went to study to read shortly after watching Harry summon the Pluto dragon. Ryan, who was alone in the basement, was watching the video and marveling at the usefulness of Peter Pettigrew. As a member of the Castle family in the magic world, Smith has always had a strong sense of security. Ryan knew very well how useful the magic was hidden in the house he lived in. For wizards, no matter how strong the fortress is or how dangerous the fortification is, it can be broken with a simple transformation spell. But if the house contained magic, especially magic that contained universal counters to common spells, this meant that, as long as its structure was physically strong, it could also be an impenetrable fortress for wizards. Thinking of this, Ryan turned off the projection and walked out of the basement. The human part of Peter Pettigrew's soul in the box is still in chaos. Under the control of the Lord God, they worked diligently and used magic to permeate every brick and stone of the castle, adding to the defense of Smith Castle. If it was the original Smith Castle, there would be no need for Peter Pettigrew's pitiful magic power. The original Smith Castle had long since been repaired and maintained by successive Smiths to a state where no further improvements could be made. Every piece of land and brick and stone is imbued with a hidden magic. But the illusion from the outside, the newly built castle, is not like the original castle. Although Ryan can easily restore the state of the Smith Castle in the outside world by consuming his least valuable magic power while the real Smith Castle is intact. It can be said that even if it is bombed by nuclear bombs thousands of times, Ryan can still restore it to its past state. But it is easy to go from frugality to luxury, but it is difficult to go from luxury to frugality after getting used to living in a villa. It is no longer possible to tolerate the large flat that you once thought was luxurious. So does Ryan. Although the Smith Castle in the outside world looks exactly the same as the real Smith Castle hidden in another dimension, Ryan, who has excellent perception, can sense the difference. It was like walking naked on the street at that time. Ryan was hesitating whether to divide time and complete in 1 second the feat that generations of Smiths had accomplished for thousands of years, to permeate magic into every corner of the Smith Castle, but he gave up after all. Although the time in the outside world is only 1 second, he can truly experience so many worlds. Then he discovered something he had overlooked for a long time as the wizard's soul. Peter Pettigrew is really good. The core of the Lord resides in the real Smith Castle. The soul of Peter Pettigrew is equivalent to the core of the castle in the outside world, allowing this new castle to quickly possess traces of magic under the continuous output of a wizard. As long as the main body of the mouse, Banban, is still alive, the wizard part of whose soul will not lose its magic like an ordinary ghost. Ghosts lose their magical powers because, without a physical body, all of their magical powers are used to resist death, thus achieving the immortality of their souls before death. At the cost of losing most of the senses, he remains in the world in a projection-like state. After Peter Pettigrew suffered from soul exhaustion due to excessive output, he was able to rely on the existence of his physical body, the rat Banban, and the magic magnetic field to restore his original state. This is the same principle as how Voldemort relied on Horcruxes to remain immortal. Voldemort used it to remain immortal, while Peter Pettigrew used it to restore his magic power. This is the perpetual motion machine, the poor man's version. All you need is a wizard's soul and keep his body alive. At his great invention, Peter Pettigrew was destined to live forever as a mouse. In order to help him find the meaning of life and not live a life of mediocrity, Ryan generously made a decision for him to become a perpetual motion machine. This is much better than being a mouse, of course. This is not true perpetual motion. Kate escaped from the study. Kate likes reading though. But she couldn't sit still like Penelope. She prefers to practice waving her wand while reading a book. But with Penelope around, she could only sit and watch quietly. Humph. Why don't you call me Brat anymore? Ryan opened his arms. The next second, the sound of bat wings flapping was heard. Ryan's lap curled up and he rubbed Ryan's chin with his head as if to please him. What did you say afterwards? Just talked about the old Grindelwald. Ron screamed again, because of Grindelwald's return. You can easily guess what will happen next. Harry and the others will definitely ask whether Grindelwald is in danger now that he has escaped. Also informed Grindelwald that he now controls Durmstrang. Ryan touched Kate's hair, lowered his head, took a deep breath, and said with squinted eyes. Then, after Voldemort is resurrected, will you take action? Kate asked after hesitating for a moment. She was a student at Hogwarts and also grew up in England. If war breaks out, some people or things she is familiar with might be affected. If Ryan was only as strong as Voldemort, Kate wouldn't ask such a question. She was also worried about Ryan getting hurt, but Ryan was powerful enough to easily defeat Voldemort. After thinking for a moment, Kate asked the question she had already thought of. No, but there won't be any coincidences. Ryan was a little surprised, but answered immediately. He looked at Kate and said again, I promise. He formally inserts himself and destroys the prophecy that the Grim Reaper is concerned about. The Grim Reaper will see him. He didn't want to confront him so soon. And if he really has mechanized thinking, the afterlife that has covered the entire Earth will also be Ryan's territory. Souls in the afterlife didn't know how to face them. Chapter 460 Engagement Ceremony. It was the first time Harry saw so many red-haired people, and also the first time he knew that engagement was so troublesome. Don't look at me. I don't know these people either. You know, Ginny is the first girl born in our Weasley family for several generations. When she was born, many Wheel-Eyes living abroad wrote to congratulate her. Ron, who had changed into a purple suit, tied the foot secretly. As Harry's good brother and Ginny's brother, he was designated as the best man and was called up early to familiarize himself with the procedures of the engagement party. Harry, I didn't know so many people would come. Fortunately, this manor is big enough. Sirius patted Harry's shoulder. He drew out his wand and pointed it at himself. A taste of cool air gave him goosebumps on his sweaty forehead. What is this? Why do you have to cut a piece of cake on top of Ginny and me's head? Harry shook his hair, which he couldn't straighten. Creature. With Sirius's low shout, the house elf creature appeared in front of them. If it weren't for Sirius's call, Harry would not have believed that the neat, energetic house elf in front of him, with no white hair in his bat ears, was Creature. Before Harry could continue to sigh, he heard Sirius ask, You said that my ancestors in the portraits and the Wheel-Eyes have guaranteed that you will have no problem in this area. So what is this? Sirius took the booklet full of precautions from Harry's hand and pointed to the 10th step of the engagement party. Harry Potter is the godson of an unfilial father and a member of a long-standing pure-blood family. He is also the hero who rescued the great Master Regulus. It is necessary for Creature to ensure that the process is traditional and respectable. The etiquette process of the engagement banquet should be based on the husband's family. For example, the earliest historical record of the Potter family is in Gloucestershire, England. The respectable wizarding families there will cut a huge cake above the heads of the bride and groom. Kreacher spoke eloquently and did not give in. The light-bulb eyes stared straight at Sirius, speaking when Harry interrupted him with a wave of his hand. Nothing, I'm just curious as to why this happened. Kreacher, can you explain the reason? Harry asked curiously. Ron, who was watching his own process boredly, also turned his ears away. Master Potter, Kreacher knows that the original meaning of cake is a flat round bread, which represents happiness and joy. Joyfully. It means spreading out. The more pieces you cut, the more children you will have. As soon as Harry spoke, Kreacher lowered his head quickly. It was like if Harry was his master. Child. Harry felt his face getting hot. Then let's cut a few more pieces. Ginny is Weasley, Sirius teased. In Sirius's opinion, if the Weasley family had not had any girls for nearly a century, the Weasley family would not have returned to this point, before Arthur became the director of magical law. The Weasley family had a girl. Those pure-blood families who wanted many offspring would not care about the title of pure-blood traitor at all. The Weasley family is despised by other pure-bloods, perhaps out of jealousy that they have so many children. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a huge white tent was set up outside the mansion pillars. Fred and George tied a large string of golden balloons over the location seating of Harry and Ginny's upcoming engagement ceremony. Outside, leaf butterflies with wings as bright as jasper fluttered lazily over the grass and hedges. Combined with the occasional fountain spraying water vapor from the tent, it felt like a fairyland. Harry was anxiously waiting for the engagement party to begin in the newly built tent outside the mansion. Ron, Draco, and Sirius acted as their relatives, and were outside the white tent, holding a chart and directing the guests to their appropriate seats. After an unknown amount of time, the tent was already full of people, and Sirius was standing on the podium. Ace to host. He had a neat short haircut and was wearing a golden suit. Below the stage, on both sides of the blue carpet, Dumbledore and his companions sat closest to the stage by excited laughter. The most interesting one here is Hagrid, who is sitting on a specially made golden chair. The chair was as big as the 5 seats next to it combined, and with a relatively short Draco sitting next to him, the contrast was particularly funny. Professor Snape is painted in a different style. He looks like he is sitting on a branding iron, with a stiff expression, staring ahead. Tonks sat next to Lupin. But she was not as quiet as Lupin. She was surrounded by the red-haired Weasley children, and she frowned from time to time, making one weird and funny nose or mouth after another. Mrs. Weasley moved among the crowd like a top. Say hello to people from time to time. Bill and Charlie chose not to sit with their Weasley relatives. They sat behind Hagrid, whispering something to Hagrid in front of them, and even Draco from time to time. Harry knew that they must be talking topics about related to dragons. But Bill? Percy sat with the Weasley twins, who seemed to have the worst relationship with him. Fred and George had been trying to sell something to their relatives who lived not far away. But Percy stopped them, blocking their way with his body with a serious look on his face. Harry and Ron stood at the front of the big tent, both wearing dress robes and large white roses in their buttonholes. Harry looked nervously towards the entrance, which was empty. But he knew that the person who would accompany him for the rest of his life would appear from there. I don't know how long it was before a cold wind blew by, and the icy light blue petals that I felt on my body were blown in from outside the tent by the wind. Soothing and pleasant music suddenly sounded. Amid the music, the wind, and the petals, Ginny appeared. She took Mr. Weasley's right hand and walked along the blue carpet. The wizards gathered in the tent side in unison. Chapter 461 Wedding. This was the first time Harry saw Ginny in a day. Mr. Weasley had obviously changed into some conspicuous clothes, and his hair was no longer as wind-blown as before, but he didn't notice it at all. He only had eyes for Ginny at this moment. Ginny was wearing a simple golden dress that seemed to sparkle with tiny bits of gold against the white tent. Her fiery red hair was tied up on top of her head with a silver headdress inlaid with yellow gems, and her charming jawline was clearly visible to Harry and else. In Harry's eyes, everything around him seemed to disappear. The same was true for Ron beside him. Only Ginny, accompanied by the fragrance of an unknown flower and the coolness brought by the petals themselves, appeared in front of Harry at the last second before everyone ended. Ladies and gentlemen, Sirius' voice brought Harry back to reality, and the friendly laughter around him reached his ears. He also noticed that in addition to Ginny, Mr. Weasley was also looking down at him. Today we gather here to celebrate the coming together of 2 loyal souls. In Merlin, Sirius spoke eloquently on the stage. Ginny turned her head and smiled, winked at Harry, and then quickly faced forward again. Harry's thoughts drifted away from the tent, back to the free moments he and Ginny had spent alone in the empty classroom of the castle. That seemed like a long, long time ago. He always felt that those moments were too good to be true because Ron always tried to stay by his side. So those beautiful times are so short and rare. Serious words on the stage were still talking about him and Ginny. But Harry couldn't help but feel a tinge of anger at those memories. Harry, who had just merged with his former self and faced his dark side some time ago, only had one thing in mind at this moment, which was to pull out his wand and cast have curses on Ron who had just been beside him. Harry James Potter, are you willing to spend your life with Ginevra Molly Weasley, Ginny's full name? Serious words, and all the eyes focused on him at that moment, reminded Harry where he was and what he needed to do. Gone. Harry took Ginny's hand. There were some crying sounds and trumpet-like sounds coming from all around. Even without turning his head, Harry knew that only Hagrid could make such a loud noise. Your engagement complete. May you live happily ever after. Sirius drew out his wand and waved it high above their heads. The white tent roof turned into a pitch-black curtain, and tiny dots of starlight fell from the starry sky, forming a large field of silver stars that fell on them, swirling around their bodies that were now tightly hugged. Then, a sound like exploding fireworks appeared above their heads, and a cake decorated like stars floated above their heads. Mr. Weasley walked up to the podium, also with his wand drawn. As he and Sirius drew together, the 10-layer cake was cut into small pieces, turned into meteors, flew to the audience below the stage, and landed on the plate like vine leaves that suddenly emerged from the ground in front of them. The golden balloons above their heads exploded, and the bird of paradise and a little golden bell flew out and floated in the air. Please eat. So, accompanied by the sounds of birds and bells, began to eat. Harry suddenly felt a little happy. But not because of the commitment. Instead, he suddenly realized that Ron was standing aside like a doorman, watching others eat heartily. Blessings for the ceremony. The bride and groom, the best man and bridesmaid, and the person cutting the cake, usually two people, each a relative of the bride and groom, one of whom also serves as the host, are not allowed to eat it. With these thoughts in mind, Harry held Ginny's hand and stared blankly at the stage. In a normal wedding, the second half would have already ended by this time. But at the engagement ceremony in Gloucestershire, England, there was also a scene where the guests ate cake. Only when everyone has finished eating will it officially end and enter the second half of the free activity. So Harry began to pay attention to the eating sounds after he got up. In Harry's peripheral vision, Hagrid finished eating first. The cake is too small for him. Although he tried his best to taste it slowly, he still swallowed it in just a few bites. After he finished eating, the vines and the knife and fork in his hand seemed to sense something. The vines turned into a breeze, and the knife and fork turned back into golden powder. Ladies and gentlemen, Sirius and Mr. Weasley shouted, please stand. Everybody stood up. Maybe because they had just eaten, got up very neatly. Sirius and Mr. Weasley waved their wands again. All the seats rose lightly and gracefully into the air and the canvas of the great tent disappeared. Everyone in the air automatically gathered around the small table covered with a white tablecloth, and floated back to the ground around the dance floor lightly and gracefully. The band wearing golden shirts walked out of the house and walked towards the stage in unison. Absolutely! Rum exclaimed. Waiters appeared from all directions, some carrying silver trays with pumpkin juice, butterbeer and fire whiskey, and some carrying a pile of shaky pies and sandwiches. Ron couldn't wait to run to the nearest table, which was already filled with food. Harry looked at Ron with a little envy, because he and Ginny were immediately surrounded by the crowd and received blessings from the crowd. What made Harry most uncomfortable was that he didn't know most of these people. Most of them have fiery red hair and freckles all over their faces. If Ginny hadn't been by his side, to be honest he wouldn't have been able to bear it nearby. Fred and George took out a couch-shaped flying machine they had used on the Quidditch pitch and flew around, selling mist bottles and other gadgets they had invented to their relatives. Hagrid found his giant chair, which was 5 times bigger than the others, and sat at the table with Draco, Charlie, and Bill, discussing something. Chapter 462 Ramsay's Eye. The sky was gradually getting dark, and the eyes of the statues in the manor's fountain lit up with colorful lights, so that everyone would not have to wander around in the dark. Most people had left, only the Weasley family and Draco stayed. Adults and children sat at 2 tables respectively and had dinner under the misty lights of the fountain. Harry and Ginny were among them. However, Fred and George were nowhere to be seen. When their sale was discovered by Mrs. Weasley, they hid in the house with the food and a few bottles of butterbeer. Percy said he was going to look for them and disappeared as well. Finally, I can finally eat something properly. Harry took a big sip of pumpkin juice and breathed a sigh of relief. Were so many. Of course, where there are wizards, there are Weasleys, but we are the only ones in the UK with the surname Weasley, like my father's 2 older brothers' lineage, as well as other branches, are all in other countries. Ron took a bite of a chicken leg. I had already eaten a lot in the afternoon. But for some reason, at this time, he was hungry again. By the way, Draco, what did you talk about with Hagrid, Charlie and Bill this afternoon? I noticed that you were talking about something in the tent and after the wedding speeches. Harry took a few bites of the pie and said after his attention was no longer completely drawn to the food. Yes, I can guess that you, Charlie, and Hagrid must be discussing the Pluto dragon that Harry summoned yesterday. But what did you talk about with Bill? Also Ron became curious. Ginny also turned her head and looked at Draco. He keep asking about Harry in a roundabout way. He also interspersed some stories from his time in Egypt. It is said that they have previously dug up a living mummy in the pyramid. But unfortunately, they didn't have time to ask a local wizard who knew ancient Egyptian. Maybe the mummy dried up after leaving the pyramid. Draco shrugged disapprovingly. He didn't know that Bill had objections to Harry and Ginny's engagement, and had even thought about interfering with it many times. In the end, Bill backed down when faced with Mrs. Weasley's bloodline suppression. Dried? Harry asked curiously, not even bothering to worry about what bad tricks Bill was planning. Literally, he air-dried it, and the original mummy was said to be still full and untangled, but you could see the lustrous auburn hair. But when they die, they dry up completely, Draco explained. What happened next? Ron was very curious about the identity of the mummy. It is said that those who can become mummies are wizard emperors called pharaohs. In ancient Egypt, wizards are claimed to be descendants of God and ruled over the Muggles. Bill is a curse breaker at Gringotts. They have a special agency to investigate and sell them to museums in the Muggle community. The wizard emperor of that time. His sudden death seemed to be because the magic of his living was very sophisticated, and the pyramid he lived in could not have any mistakes. If you check in the Muggle world now, you will find that the time of his unearthed discovery has changed to 1886. On June 6, the mummy of Ramses was unwrapped at a public relations party hosted by some celebrities in the Muggle world. Draco sighed. A great wizard emperor who ruled the country, a great wizard who lived in his own mummy after his death, his body was studied. But why do you want to change the time? Why not just sell it to the Muggle world and say it was recently unearthed? Ginny was confused and felt it was an unnecessary step. It seems to be to keep him in Egypt. The Muggle world government in Egypt is too weak. It's a fictional piece of history that was dug up in the 18th century, not well preserved, and then returned to Egypt after maintenance. Draco's eyes flashed with memories, too. Isn't the history of Ramses II in the Muggle Museum a fiction? Also, why did the Egyptian Ministry of Magic buy it? Ron, who could barely be considered a businessman, discovered the blind spot. History is fiction, but Gringotts still took the money from selling the mummy. And Gringotts did not violate the protection law. His excuse for taking the money was to sell the research data on the mummy, Ramses II's hair color, height, and state before death, etc. His death. Even though Draco mentioned it again, he still couldn't help but marvel at Gringotts' operation. So, those Muggle museums thought they bought mummies, but what they actually bought was the data they thought they obtained from their own research on mummies. Ron's pupils trembled, and he couldn't calm down for a long time. But why are you so interested in what I talked about with Bill? Draco looked at Harry with the same curiosity. I noticed that Harry was the most interested, followed by Ginny. So Harry and Ginny talked about Bill's attitude and what he did. Especially finding excuses to postpone his and Ginny's wedding many times. I wonder how he keeps trying to understand you in a roundabout way thoughtfully. What did he ask? Harry's mouth went dry. Nothing. You're interested in those girls besides the normal ones. Stretched his head over. Nothing. Just asked you if we've been to the bathroom together. Do you have any tattoos? Problem. Draco said awkwardly. Tattoo. Why does he ask this? Harry looked at Ginny. Ginny seemed a little uneasy when he mentioned the tattoo. I once bragged that you had a Norwegian Spinosaurus tattooed on your chest. Ginny looked down and poked her finger. But she quickly realized her blind spot. Bill asked about the size. He's going too far. Chapter 463 Dumbledore II. What kind of person is Bill Weasley? It suddenly occurred to Harry that he knew nothing about him. Charlie could tell what kind of guy he was from the Gryffindors and Hagrid. He excels at Quidditch and, like Hagrid, loves Dragon Student Union. His reputation among Gryffindors is also better than Percy's before. But more specifically, Harry had no idea. Harry got goosebumps thinking about Bill's long hair, earrings, and curiosity about his size. Ginny, did Bill have a girlfriend when he was at Hogwarts? Harry asked nervously. You mean? Ginny's eyes widened. That's right, among his brothers, Bill is the one who pays the most attention to dressing up. And excellent wizards usually have common characteristics. She had heard other people praising Bill many times. He is funny, not stuffy, and excellent in both magic skills and studies. Plus, he came from Gryffindor, so he was simply Dumbledore II. Although this nickname faded after Bill graduated and chose to work as a curse breaker in Gringotts. But it did happen. Bill was once called Dumbledore II, Ginny said, almost trembling. Also been described by Rita Skeeter as having unhealthy relationships of one kind or another. Ron said excitedly with a flushed face. But should we say this? Bill is a Gryffindor. He doesn't lack courage. If we were to warn him to stay away from Harry, he might. Draco said seriously. Then I'll tell my mother. Harry is mine. And Harry doesn't like that tone either. Ginny's eyes were filled with uncontrollable anger. So, an hour later, Fred and George were accidentally caught by their mother and were very confused. Because the mother, who should have been angry, treated their figures as air. It's not that Mom didn't see them. They clearly notified that their mother's eyes paused them, and the corners of her mouth twitched. VE locked Percy in the 4th floor bathroom. Fred, let me think about it. Bill and Charlie's room is on the 3rd floor. Let me see, Chady is still outside in the drinking garden. Well, it was a lively conversation with Hagrid. Fred and George stopped asking and answering, looked at each other, and then said in unison, Bill. Then Fred and George drew their wands, vanishing without a trace. Without a sound. Mrs. Weasley without making any sound. Fred couldn't help but smile, a smug smile that no one could see. This is what they have been working on during this period. This was also the reason why Percy was ambushed by them. They have already learned the disillusionment charm and the silencing charm. Even the current Filch will be unable to do anything to them. The night at Hogwarts, the kingdom that belongs to them, will be back in their hands. Watching Mrs. Weasley walk into Bill's room, Fred stretched out his hand and subconsciously touched George, whom he could not see, to signal that it was okay. Even though they couldn't see each other or themselves, they still crawled to the crack of the door and found a place each. Fred pulled out a thin piece of string that should have been flesh-colored from his invisible pocket and inserted it into the crack of the door. This is one of their main products today, retractable ears, and they sold a lot. I didn't tell anyone about this because I wanted to give you face. You're not a child anymore. Bill. I don't mind if you like the same sex. No matter what, you are my son. But why do you fall in love with Harry? And, just as Fred and George were listening attentively, a spell that sounded a little strange at first came from Bill's mouth. PFFT. The retractable ear bounced back from the crack in the door. Anti-disturbance spell. Fred said with a grim expression after running to the 2nd floor panting. At this time, he had already broken the disillusionment spell and the silencing spell because he found that no one was catching up with him. I guess Bill subconsciously cast a spell on the door to prevent others from eavesdropping because the topic touched on privacy. Bill is really careful. We can't get close to the door that has been cast with the anti-disturbance spell. Not to mention retractable ears, even our heads can't stick to it. George also removed the spell with a very gloomy expression. However, Bill is like this, which means it is probably true. Mom never wrongly accuses anyone. It's unbelievable. Have you forgotten Bill's old nickname? Dumbledore II. Poor Harry, said Fred and George in unison. They looked at each other, and both of them had the intention to cause trouble in their eyes. Bill decided to accept Harry when Bill heard Ginny bragging about the tattoo on her chest. He felt a little bit of dislike for Harry because he thought that the relationship between Harry and Ginny was more than just a simple intimacy, but from Draco's mouth, He got specific information about Harry, although he accidentally asked Harry about his size, but it shouldn't be a big problem. It was those goblins who taught him bad things, because in the fairy society, size there also symbolizes social status. After you get familiar with a goblin, it's best to ask about the size there. This way you can better grasp the right measure and notice who has a higher status. After all, the culture of goblins is completely different from that of wizards. A fairy who is domineering, speaks in a commanding tone, and dresses well may not have a higher status than a timid fairy. Well, now the engagement is over, Harry. Bill just said this with a sigh. His mother just opened his door. Thanks to my classmate Jaya Ashitkin for the monthly ticket and other classmates for the recommendation and subscription. Chapter 464 Weird Fairy. Molly Weasley felt like she was going crazy. I actually got such news from Ginny. So, after Bill entered the house, she followed him in. She felt her head was swelling and seemed about to explode. So when he saw his two sons who had caused trouble today, he ignored them. The only thing on her mind now was to confirm the authenticity of the news. After taking a few deep breaths, she pushed the door open. But she couldn't believe her ears. A blushing face. Harry, she smiled sadly and gave her son a long speech of admonition. This is her 10 minutes ago. Mom, why do you think so? Bill looked at his mother with a wry smile. It's all your fault. You asked Draco about Harry's size. Weasley said confidently she is actually a very reasonable woman, but as the topic extended to the fact that her son didn't have a girlfriend, her embarrassment disappeared. I'm in Egypt. There are goblins and mummies everywhere. Even if there are wizard colleagues, they're all men. Bill said unhappily. Bill's profession as a curse breaker is equivalent to a field worker in an archaeological team in the Muggle world. To put it more easily, the environment is similar to that of a civil engineering student on a construction site. In that environment, it was really difficult to find a witch. Even though Bill thought he was handsome, he only attracted people of the same sex. Did you say you were going back to England to work this time? You are already so old. Find me a quickly. Your hair is awful, too, dear, said Mrs. Weasley, stroking her wand lovingly. Fine, just because you asked me to. And my hair, Mom, you are so out of date. Besides, compared to Professor Dumbledore's hair, it's not long at all. Is Dumbledore like you? No wonder Harry and the others suspected you. Tisk, you're wearing an earring with a horrible big fang on it. Really, Bill, what do the people at the bank say? Mrs. Weasley said with disgust. Mom, the people in the bank don't care what I wear, as long as I find a lot of treasure. Bill said patiently. Yet, they have to be human too. They're all fairies, and their aesthetics are different from humans. See, they've even taught you the bad habit of asking a man's measurements, said Mrs. Weasley sarcastically. Creepy gaze. But, Mom, you must not tell anyone about what happened today, especially Fred and George. They both want nothing more than chaos in the world. Also, Mom, you have to explain this clearly to Harry and the others. Bill continued after thinking for a moment. Fred and George. Could it be? Mrs. Weasley gasped as if she had thought of something. Weasley turned and looked towards the door. You didn't tell them, did you? Bill couldn't stop sweating on his forehead. No, I just met them. Place, explain. All these misunderstandings clearly, or they won't be able to sleep. Mrs. Weasley drew her wand and waved it, removing the anti-disturbance charm from the door and pushing it open. 10 minutes later, Harry and the other three, who stayed in the garden because they were worried that something was really wrong with Bill, welcomed Mrs. Weasley. So, Bill just spent too much time with goblins and said something wrong by accident. After Mrs. Weasley left, Harry took a sip of the butterbeer that no one else, except Sirius, would let him drink here. Fairies are really weird. Draco, do you know the differences between goblins and us wizards? Ron sighed and looked at Draco. The Malfoy family has always been the representative of the wealthy in the wizarding world. They should be aware of the goblins who are in charge of the safety of wizards' property. Words, but I don't know what Bill said. Could it be that Bill made it up? Rum exclaimed. No, this should be true. That would explain why the bribes our family used against the goblins were ineffective. My grandfather, Abraxas Malfoy, once swore that a goblin he bribed was definitely tempted by the offer he made. But there was no follow-up to this matter. The status of that goblin should not be very high. It's just that my grandfather mistakenly believed that the goblin was the key person based on the conventional views of wizards and human society. Draco explained. What else is so strange about that goblin? Ron asked after he breathed a sigh of relief. Goblin. Harry agreed. Because the goblin concepts of ownership, remuneration, and compensation are different from those of humans. To a goblin, the rightful owner of any object is the one who made it, not the one who bought it. Everything that goblins make belongs to them in their eyes. That means if there was a goblin at this wedding, he would definitely be able to tell that this headdress is ancient. You can even tell which goblin craftsman made it by its appearance. Judging from this, it is a piece of dirty stuff that was purchased by a wizard long ago and passed down to his descendants without permission, Draco said seriously. Did I hear you right? This is a piece of dirty stuff that you paid for? Ron asked in disbelief. The goblins will think it's rented by whoever pays. They believe that upon the death of the original purchaser, the item should be returned to the goblin. And passing it on to future generations like we did is no better than stealing in their eyes. Draco frowned. Now I finally understand why fairies judge status by the size of that. They are a different species from humans. Harry sighed. Chapter 465. It's hard to say anything. Now Bill just wanted to dig a hole and bury himself in it, because he really couldn't stand the gazes of the people around him and the photos in front of him. It all started 10 minutes ago, when he was yawning as he walked downstairs. Because of what happened last night, he was so depressed that he couldn't sleep. I could only frown and think of taking a walk in the garden while it was just dawn and no one was around due to the harsh environment of Egypt. Then, he was hit by several silent spells from behind. His eyes went dark and he appeared in this room. His father, his two younger brothers Charlie and Percy, and Sirius were all sitting around him. And the table in front of him was filled with a row of photos. The photos were placed so that he could see them directly when he woke up. Bill, Molly should have talked everything out with you last night. I didn't intend to do this. But Sirius thinks that as long as you don't find a boyfriend, you are a potential threat to Harry. Forks. I think it's necessary. Look at the wizards in these pictures. They are all wizards who like men and are similar to Harry, whom I asked my newspaper to collect overnight. You can see, they all have black hair. Some even have green eyes. A cold voice sounded in Bill's ears. Bill rolled his only movable eye at Sirius. His expression was very interesting at this moment. 3 parts disgust, 2 parts anger, and 5 parts alienation. Bill, what's wrong with you? His favorite brother Charlie was so sad that he couldn't even utter a complete sentence. Dad, should we ask Bill? Maybe we made a mistake. Percy said in a tentative tone. Bill's eyes were filled with tears when he heard this. He had never found his younger brother so adorable. He couldn't stop complaining again, wondering why his father and Charlie didn't believe in him. And Mom, didn't she tell Dad? But now he could do nothing but roll his eyes. And Sirius was still introducing him to the wizards in these photos one by one. And on the other side Percy, we have solid evidence. This. You can hear his father's loss and pain from his tone. What's that? Bill was overjoyed. Just as he was about to ask, Percy asked for him. You know Ron invented the mist bottle. Fred and George always wanted to make a replica. But it keeps failing. But it cannot be said that their research has not made any progress. Although they cannot create the mist that only Ron can create to store the information of Ron's own feelings. But they also figured out how to get their message into that mist. Except Dumbledore, McGonagall, Moody, and Kingsley, who didn't know because they went back. Charlie, Sirius, and Hagrid all knew about the conversation between your mother and Bill through the smoke bottle that Fred and George processed for the second time. Percy. Oh, I see, Dad. Bill, how could you do this? Bill couldn't help feeling sad when he heard that his last supporter also began to doubt him. Voice rang out, oh, you like this? What a coincidence. He also lives in Devon, England. You can meet each other often and get closer in the future. And he's a classmate of Tonks. He's also really good at Quidditch. Sirius mistook the delight in Bill's eyes when he had just heard Percy ask, is it because Bill is good at Quidditch, or because he has black hair and green eyes? When Bill couldn't help but feel about going crazy, his father and 2 brothers said separately. After an unknown amount of time, when Sirius had already started talking about what time the wizard got up and what he didn't like to eat, Bill finally heard a voice that sounded like heavenly music to him. Why don't we let Bill go and let him give us his opinions? Still, Percy. Bill almost couldn't help but swear at this moment, if this was solved, his favorite brother in the future would be Percy. As for Charlie, where did this little bastard come from? So, with Bill's eyes almost popping out of his head, his father finally pulled out his wand. There was a flash of blue light, and Bill began to breathe heavily. Bill, what do you think of this young man? Just If you think it's okay, I'll arrange for you to meet him this afternoon," Sirius almost shouted. He was too anxious and showed no sign of his previous coldness. "Can I take a look at that mist bottle that Fred and George gave you?" Bill took a deep breath and said, suppressing his anger. "Here." Mr. Weasley took out a glass bottle surrounded by mist that was shimmering with tiny dots of light from his arms. Bill unscrewed the bottle cap and inhaled. His consciousness instantly returned to last night. He followed his mother with a swagger. Although he very walked directly, his footsteps did not make any sound. After my mother entered the room, he took out a hose and stuffed it into the crack of the door. His mother's voice followed, and he himself was hesitating. When the him in his memory shouted out the anti-disturbance spell, the scene changed again. He appeared at the loud table. The next scene is Ron eating. "A word in there," Bill said speechlessly. "Don't you like Harry? Then why did you agree, keep humming, and finally use an anti-interference charm to prevent others from eavesdropping? This doesn't make sense. If you really don't like it, the rest should be your explanation. Why is it necessary to block it?" Sirius looked doubtful. "That's Harry, who looks just like James. Would Bill not be tempted?" Bill rolled his eyes. Then he talked about the content of his subsequent communication with Mrs. Weasley. "So you asked Harry about his size after all?" Sirius said, stroking his chin after listening. "If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 466. Half a month later. He glanced at Bill, who was still frowning, and whispered, "I haven't seen a letter in a long time." Harry shrugged. He looked into the kitchen and glanced at the grandfather clock in the corner. Harry liked the clock very much. "If you want to know the time, it's completely useless, but it can give you a lot of other information. Might be. There are home, school and work, as well as on the road, missing, hospital, prison, and at 12 o'clock on the ordinary clock, it is marked life danger." At this moment, all 7 needles were pointing to home, and Mr. Weasley's needle, the longest of the 9 needles, was still pointing to work. And Ginny's, the shortest of the 9, was still pointing on the road. "I'm here." "You didn't come to our house just for Ginny, did you? I thought you were doing this because of me." Ron turned sideways to block Harry's sight, looking very dissatisfied. Who are you to ask this? Ginny Nicole is my fiancée. Of course I did because of her. Be careful not to let Fred and George hear you saying this." Harry rolled his eyes in annoyance. "I'm not Bill. He's the student's body president, has a good job, and dresses cool. Plus, Fred and George were detained for 10 days because of this incident, and they were only recently released. How could they have the guts to do this?" Ron picked up a sandwich and said while eating, not at all nervous about what Harry said. "And this matter actually has little to do with Fred and George. Obviously, it was the aftermath of Sirius Black's high-profile use of the resources of the Daily Prophet, the largest newspaper in the UK, to find a man for Bill." Ron took a sip of milk and continued, "That's not the point. The point is, where do you get the confidence to compete with Ginny? In other words, if you choose to go to my house and Lavender's house, you choose your house. It must be your house." Ron replied decisively before Harry finished speaking. "Why Io? Stay away from my fiancée, you hypocrite." Ginny's voice came from the door. The shortest hand on the grandfather clock also reached the home position. "When you were at Hogwarts you shamelessly took every opportunity to make out with Lavender. And now you say this. I really doubt if you are Bill, the Bill that Fred and George are talking about." Ginny sat directly in Harry's arms, blocking Harry and Ron. "I'm not stupid, I'm just Lavender's." Ron lowered his voice and looked at Bill. "Going to Harry's house is different. Sirius's house is fun. Lupin and Tonks are still there. It is said that Regulus can speak recently. And the portrait of the crazy old woman. It's fun to tease her sometimes. Well, there's also the umbrella made from the troll's foot. It's now as good as new. There we can also know the contents of the Daily Prophet in advance." Ron talked about everything about Sirius's home in detail. "How about we go to Sirius's house again this summer?" Harry asked tentatively. "Forget it. Draco's not here again. He has to accompany Pansy. How can we play just the 2 of us?" Ron shook his head decisively. "Have you that I'm still here? Ginny patted the table to indicate that she was here. You. Ron shook his head in disdain. Forget it. Mom and Dad support your commitment, but they won't let you go to Sirius's house. After all, it's just you and Harry there, with no adults to supervise you. Sirius doesn't act like an adult. The only reliable one, Lupin, is with Tonks all day and not at home. Mom and Dad won't be at ease. Ron said this and sighed helplessly. Our family is also very good. I recently renovated my home, and now I have a lot more space. All of a sudden there are 4 more bedrooms. Now that Charlie and Bill are back, there are extra rooms. Family, I get angry when I talk about this. Why do Fred and George have 2 rooms? They clearly eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom together. They have never been apart. It just gives them more room to experiment. What's going to happen if this continues? They have cracked my smoke bottle lately. Invented a spell to add information to it. Ron frowned. If this continues, Fred and George can leave you alone and go it alone. I knew this was what you cared about. Ginny sneered. Not at all important. Every student will be attending, and the Ministry of Magic has even given us permission to use magic at home. Obviously, this is not only about the reputation of our college, our school, but also our country. Under such circumstances, Fred and George have been doing all sorts of crooked things all day, wasting the opportunity to practice magic with great difficulty. Conference. Engorgement. Light flashed. Ron covered his neck and seemed to want to speak, but no sound came out. I have swelled. His eyes bulged out, each of his fingers swelled up to the size of a sausage, his robes were torn apart and banged against the wall, he was swelling up like a terrifyingly large balloon. Well, we really should waste the opportunity. Ron, you will definitely help us. Fred and George walked out from behind the balloon with a wicked smile, blew at the tip of their wands, and made a victory gesture. Chapter 467, Click. Funny, extremely funny. Ron is now completely round. He floated toward the ceiling like a lifebuoy with a pair of small eyes. His hands and feet stretched out in strange positions, making bursts of popping noises. George below might have felt that Ron had been punished enough, or he might have been afraid of being caught by Mrs. Weasley or Bill. He waved his wand. Another flash of blue light passed by and hit Ron. Puff puff. The sound of a balloon being popped was heard, and Ron also bumped around the room like a popped balloon. Fred turned around and waved his wand. Invisible ripples spread out, confining all movement to this room. About 2 minutes later, Ron finally returned to normal, restored to their original state. Even the kettle stood up again, and the milk inside flowed back into the kettle from the ground and Ron's hair. Under the effect of magic, the milk in the pot is as clean as it was at the beginning, but no one will drink it. Fred retracted his wand upon seeing this. I'm going to tell Mom. Ron said angrily, holding his neck. Who told you to say bad things about us? After we help you sell your goods and earn a lot of gold galleons, yeah, aren't we doing what you said? Yeah, you should be happy. We work hard and make progress. Yes. For Gryffindor. Hogwarts. Britain. Fred and George sang in unison. Harry. Ginny, why don't you help me? Ron turned and looked at Harry and his sister, the 2 guys who should have stood on his side. We forgot. Yes, Harry and I were just talking about something else. Harry and Ginny looked at each other and said while trying to suppress their laughter. Really? So what are you talking about? Ron looked at Harry and Ginny. And Fred and George pointed their wands at themselves and disappeared in an instant. Harry could notice the irregular movement of air though. It can be confirmed that the 2 of them did not rely on the superb and silent apparition, but rather a spell like the disillusionment charm in the morning almost every day recently. Mom and Dad aren't surprised either. Ron quickly looked at Ginny when he heard that. This is the question he wanted to ask recently. He had thought Ginny would say it herself, but she never did. Harry also woke up from his speculation about Fred and George's disappearance method and looked at Ginny in his arms. He was also curious about where Ginny had gone. Advance. Quibbler is from their family. I've been working at their house lately, doing some typesetting and editing work. Ginny said to Ron, who was looking at him, and emphasized, Mom and Dad know too. Is it the Quibbler who first discovered the Crumplehorn snorkeler, found the long-lost incarnation of Fenrir, and published information about the Elder Wand? Ron said suddenly. He appeared very excited. Harry and Ginny couldn't help but feel a little confused, but the next second, their doubts disappeared. I think my smoke bottle needs an ad. Sirius is unwilling to publish and promote my invention because of my mother's request. Oh, I'm so confused. Did I know that the Quibbler belonged to Luna? His head and looked at his sister, Ginny. Do you have the permission to publish some articles, such as about your brother's greatest works? If, well, I'm willing to pay, up to 10 galleons. Ron mistook Ginny's sudden frown for her lack of authority. Enough. Ginny yelled. The Quibbler is a newspaper that speaks for the minority and for the truth that is slandered as a lie. It is not influenced by money and does not accept advertising. If it wanted to, it would have been famous long ago. You know, it's very difficult to get permission to open a newspaper in the wizarding world. No editor of any small newspaper can be destitute. But that's what Mr. Lovegood is all about. Because he only posts things that seem ridiculous to ordinary people. Ginny glared at Ron, broke free from Harry's arms, and stood up. But, apart from the content that has become famous recently, the rest of it is just ridiculous. You know, my dad used to subscribe to the Quibbler to support his neighbors. But the content above made even my dad, a good man, stop subscribing, Ron retorted. I thought Ginny was crazy in the Quibbler simply because of its recent fame. It's just like the name of the Quibbler. The purpose of this newspaper is to publish different voices from the mainstream and to sing a different tune. Because sometimes the truth lies in the hands of a few people. Just like how many magizoologists thought the Quibbler was a publicity stunt when the Crumplehorn Snorlax was first released. But what about the truth? Although this will also lead to some ridiculous remarks. But that doesn't stop us from publishing different voices. Even if the content above is really fake, it's okay to just watch it for fun. What's more, it can broaden readers' minds and teach them to think about things from unusual perspectives. Ginny raised her head high and said proudly, "Isn't my mist bottle unusual? I think you are too familiar with me because I am your brother to do me and my invention justice. Different. We are all Ravenclaws. Her boyfriend Ryan is still a good friend of mine. I think she will agree to my request." Ron waved his hand, indicating that what Ginny said was nonsense. HMPH. Ryan has been with Luna recently. I don't think you have the guts to harass them. Ginny raised her eyebrows in disdain. What? It was Harry who exclaimed. He suddenly felt that his hat was a little green. According to Ginny, she must have been seeing Ryan without him for half a month straight. With Ryan's charm? Harry's heart sank to the bottom. Chapter 468 Little Hangleton. You also have a lot of questions for Ryan. That mirror world Ryan must know something. Ginny said softly, looking at her fiancé. She misinterpreted Harry's exclamation. Yes, I do have a lot to ask him. Harry then remembered something was as if there was a force that made him forget all this for a while. Forgot the panel that appeared in my retina. Harry blinked. A new task. Mission 3, find Little Hangleton in the mirror world and summon the mirror beast. Note, this mirror beast does not refer to the Pluto dragon. The mirror beast will automatically appear after arriving here. You must defeat it without summoning the Pluto dragon. Harry frowned. Oneself are explained as strengthening the magic of love within oneself. Accepting yourself can transform the shield of love into a sword against the outside world. Rejecting yourself will increase the defensive power of the shield. But no matter what choice you make, only the strongest one can serve as a candle to illuminate the way from the afterlife to the real world. You can use it to find your mother with the help of the Resurrection Stone Beast. Will also appear when he appears. Why can't I summon Pluto Dragon? This task just happened to be refreshed at this time. Does Ryan not want to see him? He forgot the task panel. Was it also because of Ryan? I wrote to Ryan and asked him. I'm a little sleepy. I need to take a rest. Harry lied. Seemed to want to see him right now. Perhaps Ryan didn't want to have anything to do with someone who was going to perform the taboo ritual of resurrection for the time being. After all, the god of death seems to be real and both of their ancestors had connections with the god of death. Ryan is the descendant of the boss, so perhaps that's why our Ryan cannot have anything to do with the god of death. After all, in the story, the boss was defeated by the god of death. The third brother can be considered the winner, as he is the third brother's descendant. Harry went upstairs while guessing. Ginny rushed forward to support Harry. Ginny, I'm waiting outside. Bill suddenly said when he ran into Harry and Ginny. He rolled his eyes. I just heard Harry say that he was sleepy and wanted to go upstairs to rest. But Bill could tell at a glance that Harry was pretending. Ginny, in fact, he was signaling to Harry that he had discovered his little thoughts. What are you thinking about? Ginny looked at Bill unhappily. She understood Bill's thoughts in an instant. She just thought it was Bill's heart, so everything she saw was dirty. Could she tell that Harry was pretending to be sleepy? But Harry obviously had something important to do, so he couldn't hide his panic was left behind in just a few minutes. But he really didn't dare to go find Luna now. That guy Ryan can bring them back to the ground from the moon in an instant. He didn't dare to offend him, even if it was possible. The British Library, the largest library in the United Kingdom. Company. The books are arranged in two parts, humanities and social sciences. Science, technology and industry are another part. The library owns every book and newspaper ever published in Britain. A copy of both periodicals and sheet music must be kept in the library. The Humanities and Social Sciences Division has 13 million volumes, including collections in the Oriental and Indian rooms, the National Sound Archive, manuscripts, music, maps, newspapers and stamps. And Harry is here at this moment, in the British Library of the Mirror World, within the location of Diagon Alley. 10 minutes ago, after declining Ginny's company, he entered the Mirror World through the glass on the window. Because Mrs. Weasley and others consciously took mirrors away from Harry's room, they felt that the Mirror World was too dangerous. The reason for choosing the British Library is that it has the most complete map of the United Kingdom. As for whether Little Hangleton would be a wizard's village, that's simply impossible. Hogsmeade is the only purely wizarding village in Britain, therefore, he didn't need to go to Hogwarts to look up a map of the wizarding world. Because the wizarding world overlaps with the Muggle world. Sitting at the long table in the library, Harry conjured up a pen and drew circles on a map that was completely reversed from the real world. There are 10 Little Hangletons in total. In England. But this is the most likely one. Harry thought as he drew a circle in the lower left corner of the map. Because next to Little Hangleton in England is a town called Great Hangleton. Clear water. Harry drew his wand. Under his intentional control, the water mist dripped onto the smooth ground. A thin layer of water film formed, reflecting everything around it, like a mirror. Harry waved his wand again, and the place marked on the map seemed to be cut by an invisible blade and flew into his arms. He took a deep breath and stepped into the mirror he had just created. He silently recited the exact address, and a mirror answered him. He was like a piece of iron being attracted by a magnet. The next second, light reappeared around them. The more he felt something was calling him. That might be what he's going to beat. That thing, no, that unknown mirror beast will appear when he reaches the place he perceives. He also understood why the task description summons said. At the corner, he closed his eyes, go right. So he turned right and went steeply down the hillside, and a valley suddenly appeared in front of him. Chapter 469, The Three-Eyed Thestral. Harry was a little confused because the feeling didn't exist in the village. Nor was it in the very imposing mansion on the hillside across the valley. But, because the downhill road was too steep, Harry couldn't help but jog, then turn left, and there he was. Before Harry appeared a gap in the fence, leading to a narrow dirt road. The hedges on either side were taller and thicker than those he had just passed, and the dirt road was winding, bumpy, and rocky, and it went down as steeply as the previous path. But Harry did not hesitate at all. The closer he got, the more he felt a throbbing sensation. It was the same feeling as facing Voldemort and his Horcruxes. The scar on his forehead began to throb again, emitting streams of icy cold magical power that enveloped his brain. The phoenix in the heart raised its long neck and cried loudly, "Leaf!" Floating down from the sky and landing steadily at the end of the road, a dark forest in the real world. This might be the residence of a dark wizard. This was what Harry thought the moment he looked at the woods, because the sky is clear now, but these big trees block out all the light, casting cool, dark and dense shadows, and in this shadow lay the valley below, with a house half hidden among the tangled trees. Harry actually felt a little familiar with it. This is the first time I have seen a place that is so consistent with the residence of wizards in fairy tales. So much so that the moss-covered walls, the roof with many tiles missing, the rafters exposed here and there, the dense nettles growing around the house, and the windows covered with thick old dirt all looked particularly lovely. And this house was his destination, was attracted by a magnet. Ravenclaw's crown was his trump card. With the blessing of the crown and the cold magic on his forehead, he soon realized one thing. The mirror beast that gave him the same feeling as Voldemort might not be able to appear. Because it was as dark as night all around, without a trace of sunlight. The glass on the windows of the house opposite was also covered with dirt. Harry inhaled slowly, and flaming magic emerged from his mouth and nose with his breath. It swirled around his head and slowly took shape like a red sun. The red sun shone brightly, and the dirt on the windows disappeared like snow seeing the sun. The earth is shaking. It was accompanied by a long, terrifying roar boom. The surrounding trees looked as if they had been hit by a train. A dark shadow came towards Harry along the fracture. The red sun above Harry's head automatically moved forward and slammed into the black shadow. Sun in the sky finally shone on this land that had not been exposed to sunlight for thousands of years. Harry held the wand in both hands and pointed it forward. An invisible shield condensed in front of him, blocking the impact. And the dark shadow finally appeared in front of Harry to Thestral, except that it has green eyes. And it is not skinny at all. On the contrary, its body is covered with tangled muscles, and each muscle is covered with protruding blood vessels. Green blood with spots of fluorescence moved at high speed in the blood vessels, making the monster seem to be emitting the green light of death. Harry held his breath and tapped himself with his wand. His body seemed to have lost its substance, and the ground swallowed him up like a quagmire. Deep in the stone-filled underground, Harry's body curled up into a ball. Invisible magic wrapped around his body, creating the air needed by his body. And his mind was projected onto the red sun that the monster was staring at. Cast off. Harry's voice sounded from the red sun. Then there was the sound of the eggshell breaking. A sacred, beautiful bird song sounded from the red sun. It's Phoenix. Beautiful golden and red creature. It has a golden tail, as long as a peacock's tail, and a pair of golden tail claws, and its body is burning with a flaming magical halo. The original red sun was like an egg. As the phoenix spread its wings and flew high, the eggshell turned into fiery red meteors and flew towards the monster on the ground. The monster flapped its wings, creating waves of sound and avoiding all the meteors. Ping-pong. Ping-pong. The sound of collisions and the collision of fangs and claws ranged out in the air. Two rays of light, one red and one green, sometimes chased each other and sometimes collided in the sky. Red light fell from the sky, burning the ground and leaving a long, steaming scratch on the ground. Flames started from the remains of the tree. What's going on? Phoenix Harry thought as he looked up from the flames. This mirror beast is too strong. This magic, which Ryan named Phoenix Incarnation, has never been defeated in the virtual world since he learned it. Every time he hid his body and transformed himself into a phoenix, no matter how powerful the vampire Snape, the headless knight Sirius, or the troll Dumbledore were, they were no match for him. You know, this is a phoenix that was transformed using the magic of his mother's love. Even Voldemort's former avatar suffered defeat in front of it and rebounded onto his own master. What's more, after merging with it the phoenix ignited a flaming magical halo. Harry tried it in the mirror world, but accidentally burned down the whole of London. If the mirror world was not based on reality, it would be repaired according to reality. I guess he won't be able to find Little Hangleton through the British Museum. No, it must have a weakness. Not even Voldemort himself would be that difficult to deal with. Not to mention that this should be the beast mirror corresponding to his Horcrux in the mirror world. Phoenix Harry thought as he hid in the flames that had now burned down the entire valley. I see, thought Harry excitedly. In the flames that had consumed even Great Hangleton, 5 miles away, Harry finally spotted the black stone between the monster's wings. It was deeply buried in fluorescent green veins and black fur. There was a crack on the stone with overlapping triangles and circles. It looked like an eye. Chapter 470 completed Mission 3. Whoosh! In the raging fire that burned the entire Little Hangleton and Big Hangleton, a thestral with a green glow was running inside, as if looking for something. Its green eyes shone with a green halo that penetrated everything. The eyes in the middle of its wings also began to twitch, emitting a terrifying aura of death. Boom boom boom, a heart-wrenching roar. This thestral-like monster flew towards the whirlpool with great volume. The phoenix flapped its wings, and the flames turned into a thick wall of fire. Exclamation mark. The green light emitted from the monster's blood vessels formed a thin film that kept the flames out of its body. The beating third eye is filled with a deep aura of death. The film on the monster's body is always in a state of destruction and repair. As the monster got closer, the phoenix's wings flapped more and more violently. But the monster was getting faster and faster until it turned into an afterimage. These flames seemed to inspire the power of its third eye. Kangxi. The dragon-like head burst out from the wall of fire and bit the phoenix's neck fiercely. The flaming magical halo on his body gradually went out. It's time. When the voice sounded, the monster opened his mouth and felt something was wrong. In the opposite direction where the sound came from, Phoenix Harry emerged from the flames, and his golden claws fiercely grabbed the monster's third eye, a black stone. The moment the stone left the monster's body, the monster turned into flying smoke. The black stone jumped up, broke free from Phoenix Harry's claws, and flew to the ground. Stayed on the ground, and the surrounding flames automatically moved away, revealing the burnt black ground. A curled-up human body slowly emerged from the ground. "Drink and drink," Harry gasped. He was actually sucked out of the ground by the rocks. The stone emitted a dark light, or rather turned into. It sank into Harry's body along with the light sky. Then, the flames extending from the two towns turned into thin threads and poured into the belly of the open-mouthed phoenix. As the flames disappeared, the phoenix glanced at Harry below and flew into the sky. Boom! With a bang loud, a beautiful firework appeared in the sky. Ugh! Harry struggled to cover his forehead and opened his eyes. The blackened ground was gone. He was now in a dark, overgrown graveyard. The dark outline of a small church can be seen behind a tall yew tree on the left, and a hill on the right. How long had he been unconscious? It's already dark. Where is he now? Big Hangleton or Little Hangleton? But he didn't think too much about it because Task 3 in his retina had already been shown as completed. Waves of information flowed out from his heart. That was the magic that protected the Horcruxes in that room. It's unbelievable. Now, I know the location of the Resurrection Stone. Harry couldn't help but exclaim. There is no doubt that what he had in his hand just now was the Resurrection Stone. The Resurrection Stone in the mirror. That mirror beast is the embodiment of the magic that Voldemort used to protect his Horcruxes. It's amazing. In the real world, it's a subtle, vicious curse to protect this Horcrux is really powerful. Because, in fact, Harry can completely destroy the magic that protects the Horcrux in Little Hangleton in the real world by relying on destructive power alone. But he couldn't do that. I discovered that it was a complex curse that was as changeable as a Rubik's Cube. If it is cracked by brute force, the curse will only be transformed into another kind of exile. Magic himself does not know how the magic is activated. And under the effect of that magic, the place where the Horcrux arrived must be an uninhabited place, deep underground. Obviously, Harry couldn't do that. So, Harry could only break this complicated curse layer by layer. The most disgusting thing about this curse is that it always makes you think you have broken it. When you accidentally touch the Horcrux, which is the ring with the Resurrection Stone, it will invade your body and burn your vitality. Couldn't help rubbing him for it. This magic is extremely complicated. Not only is it complicated, it will also evolve depending on how the person responds to it. It can be called living magic. Harry blinked, and sure enough, a new task appeared on the task panel. Too difficult. Harry couldn't help but regret. Even though Harry already had the blueprint for the magic, he still found it complicated. For other spell breakers, the first difficulty faced by this magic is how to break it without making it more complicated. But for Harry, the answer is to control every bit of his magic just right. It must be done in one go without interruption. This is also stated in the task instructions for Task 4. As long as he could write a 100-word article on a piece of tofu, pudding would do. In one using the cutting spell was Saroused when he walked out of the glass window of the room mirror, didn't I tell you not to use that dangerous magic? Harry. Why don't you take me with you? Harry. Harry looked desperate. He knew that he had made a big fuss this time. Thousands of miles away in Smith Castle, Ryan was smiling broadly. Kate, this is much more interesting. There's a battle. Ryan waved his hand and the picture on the wall disappeared. Under the control of the Lord God, Peter Pettigrew's soul became the tireless cattle and horses that nurtured the castle. Didn't you say that the Phoenix Avatar was useless? What was that just now? Kate widened her eyes. Penelope also looked at Ryan with a smile. Chapter 471 Harry Who Doesn't Lie. Ryan never thought that seeing Harry suffer a setback would end up hurting himself. Logically speaking, most of the thoughts sleeping in Ryan's mind would have predicted this in advance. But Ryan's divine side doesn't care about that. Or rather, he believes that these are the key to ensuring that Ryan's humanity is maintained in the eternal years to come. Ryan couldn't help but curse himself. Then he looked at Kate and Penelope. It's not the Phoenix incarnation that's powerful, but the person who uses it. Looking at Kate and Penelope's murderous expressions, Ryan continued to emphasize, Harry actually never learned the magic of Phoenix transformation. The help of magic that transforms my physical body. The Phoenix Avatar created by Helpo is actually just a prosthesis that temporarily houses consciousness. It's just a means for him to survive. Ryan said briefly. There is no mention of the part of Ryan that was copied when he absorbed the magic of love from Harry. This is also the real secret of how the magic of Harry's love has evolved, hiding his real body and fighting with a fake body phoenix. This is undoubtedly Ryan's style. Everything is based on survival. It can be said that if Ryan had not relied on the power that can be improved with practice, he would have achieved invincibility for a short time. He probably wouldn't even go to Hogwarts. He also saw Ryan's shadow in Harry's fighting method. After noticing the Mirror Beast's weakness, he could have attacked directly with his slightly superior speed. This made them wonder if Ryan had given Harry some special treatment that they were not aware of. This is also the main reason why they reacted so strongly. HMPH, even if you pass, Kate said unhappily. Penelope rolled her eyes. They could all see that Ryan hadn't told the whole story. On the other side, Harry, who was surrounded, revealed a shocking piece of news. Because he disappeared for such a long time this time, even Dumbledore came after hearing the news. So, under Snape's dark face and serious worried gaze, they made an important decision together. Harry's wand would be confiscated before going to Hogwarts. Snape said, "That's more like it. Mr. Potter is a fairly skilled wizard after all. Even without the mirror, he could have 100 ways to enter that dangerous world." "Serious, Harry? I think this is too much." Merlin. "I have the same idea as Snotlout." Ron. "Brother, I think you've gone a little too far, especially without me." Mrs. Weasley. Ron Weasley. "This is not the time to joke." And the one who made the final decision, Dumbledore. "Harry, I am afraid that I will break my promise to you alone." In response, Harry could only tell the location of a Horcrux and made up a lie. "You probably all know that there is a strange connection between me and Voldemort. After I fought that I noticed that in Gringotts, London, Diagon Alley, there was a similar sensation to when I faced Voldemort in a Slytherin's locket. And then lately I've been dreaming about it. Maybe because I sensed it, it sensed me too. I felt uncomfortable today, and when I wanted to sleep, I was sucked in by a dark shadow on the window glass. I then realized that the Horcrux actually exists in the mirror world as a mirror beast. Perhaps they are just like me, and they gained life because of my entry. After a lot of hard work, I finally defeated it." Harry said half-truthfully. He didn't want his wand confiscated. You know, his next task is to practice the control of magic power by using the cutting spell. In his story, the real reason he discovered the location of the Horcrux was that he accidentally set fire to the entire London while testing a new version of the Phoenix Incarnation Care. After all, Gringotts was the second safest place after Hogwarts. According to Hagrid, it's normal to have some mysteries. The one in the mirror world is probably not simple either. It was not until today, when he faced little Hagrid's mirror beast, that he discovered there was a Horcrux. Mirror beast? But don't you have a Pluto dragon? Charlie, who believed that Pluto dragon was invincible, asked first. Yet, Hagrid was silent for a long time, unable to think of a good adjective, so he just said this: information. I feel like I can get information by beating it. The first place I sensed the presence of a Horcrux was actually Diagon Alley. After I defeated it, I was able to obtain information about its location in Gringotts from an unclear instrument it left behind. If I summon the Pluto dragon and swallow him in one gulp, I will get nothing. That's why it took me a long time to defeat the mirror beast," said Harry. He couldn't help but feel a little scared. If the mission description hadn't emphasized not to summon the Pluto dragon, he would probably have relied on it to defeat the mirror beast that looked like a night thestral. Well, in the end, he probably got nothing at all, just like he lied. But Harry was also a little happy because he noticed one thing: Dumbledore listened to his story very seriously. And that riddle, he should be the guy after the Horcrux took shape. That, as expected, everyone finally unanimously decided not to confiscate Harry's wand temporarily. Because this might put him in crisis. After all, Harry couldn't lie. It would be so dangerous if he didn't have his wand and was once again targeted by the life in the mirror. So, after comforting Harry, Dumbledore and his party left in a hurry. They also need to confirm one more thing. Where is that Horcrux? In which vault of Gringotts? As for exploring the mirror world, they were not prepared to do that. They are afraid that their entry will cause more mirror beasts to target the real world. Even another evil self appears. The headmaster's office at Hogwarts, after Elsa had left. Are you sure it's in the Lestrange vault? Dumbledore looked at Riddle. She is the only one left among the Death Eaters. I know, everyone Voldemort trusts Bella the most. Riddle agreed. Chapter 472 Gringotts. And you know that she took her husband's last name, Lestrange. Voldemort has always had a habit of giving his Horcruxes to people he trusts. The Malfoys have obtained the diary. The Black family had the honor of participating in the testing of the protective charms that concealed the locket, creature. The most secure place in the UK besides Hogwarts, and the Pureblood Vault is even more so. They would only have kept the Horcrux in their vault if they knew they could be arrested, said Riddle, with an involuntary sneer. It seemed to be mocking Voldemort's ignorance of the hiding methods of the Horcruxes. You really want it? Real. Gringotts Wizarding Bank, also known as Gringotts Bank or Gringotts for short, is the only wizarding bank in the British wizarding world. The bank is located on the north side of Diagon Alley in London. It is easy to find because the main door of Gringotts Bank faces Diagon Alley and is very eye-catching compared to the surrounding shops, a snow-white building towering above the surrounding shops. In addition to storing money and safeguarding the valuables of witches and wizards, banks can also exchange Muggle currency for magical currency. The exchanged Muggle currency back into circulation in Muggle society as a bank run by goblins who were once able to fight wizards. It was obviously unwise to break into it for a few gold galleons, and in terms of physical structure, it is also safe and reliable. It can be said that 2 doors are required just to enter the marble halls of Gringotts. At the outermost point, facing Diagon Alley, a set of white stone steps led to a bronze door where a goblin in a scarlet and gold-rimmed uniform stood. After entering and passing through the inner hall, there is a second silver door. And there are 2 goblins guarding on both sides of this door. The door is also engraved with the Gringotts' advertisement, which has reached the ears of almost all wizards. Come in, stranger. Be careful, for it will not bring treasure but bad retribution. Going further inside, there is a tall marble hall. Hundreds of goblins sat on high stools behind a long row of counters, weighing coins on copper scales, examining gems through eyepieces, or scribbling entries in large ledgers. There are countless doors in the hall, leading to different vaults. Unlike the majestic marble hall, the stone corridor leading to the vault was very narrow and dim, lit by torches. The stone corridor is a steep downhill slope with a railway underneath. The cart to the vault is manned by the bank's goblins. These small trailers took customers hundreds of thousands underground in London, racing along a maze of winding corridors to the vault. When you sit on it, you can feel the cold air whistling past, which hurts your eyes and may even make you feel like you are going to vomit. The size of the vault itself varies, and so does the level of security it provides. Of all the vaults, the largest and best protected ones belonged to the oldest wizarding families and were located on the deepest levels. Vaults closer to the ground appear to be smaller and have fewer security measures. A deep vault requires the goblin to touch the vault door to open, while a shallow vault only requires a key. It is said that in the deepest and most secure vault, there are dragons guarding it. And now, as the goblins above Gringotts were walking back and forth in the hall, thousands of miles away from London, in front of the deepest 4 or 5 vaults, a tall and thin figure suddenly emerged from thin air. The figure also ignored the dragon in front of him and took a step forward to the door of a vault, where the dragon's ugly head was 6 feet away. You know, although its 2 hind legs were tied with shackles connected to huge stakes driven deep into the stone ground, its huge wings with spikes were folded on both sides of its body. But as long as it stretches its neck slightly, or spews out dragon fire that can grind gold and burn iron, it can take your life. The figure pulled out his wand and poked at the keyless stone door in front of him. If there were a goblin here, it would be very surprised. Because Gringotts itself is a huge magic circle, wizards should not be able to operate here. Furthermore, each keyless stone door is bound to a fairy, and only when the fairy touches it will the stone door open. Other people or wizards will be sucked in. Plus, the goblins have a habit of checking the vault only every few decades. It is common to find strange, desiccated remains in vaults, and the dragon they are raising is the biggest Ukrainian iron belly. It has a magical sense of smell that is better than its eyes, unless it is a fairy who trained it, or holding a jingle piece. Anyone else who approaches it will be attacked by it like a storm. But a figure in front of him did all the forbidden things, such as approaching the dragon and touching the stone door with a magic wand, but he was safe and sound now. Even his apparition here wasn't surprising. How interesting, fairy magic. The figure laughed. His wrist trembled slightly, and he turned his wand, drawing an irregular circle in front of the stone door. The door of the vault disappeared, revealing a hole. Obsessed with wealth have these gold coins. Those who are obsessed with alchemy will chase after alchemical artifacts such as silver armor. People who like wild animals with supernatural powers will be crazy about the fur and organs of these exotic animals. Scholars who are obsessed with potions will also be fascinated by the rare potions in these jars. But the man in front of him remained calm, and even the half of his face exposed under the hood did not show the slightest smile. He walked into the cave entrance and heard a dull metallic thump behind him. The door reappeared, sealing him in the vault, and it was pitch black all around. The figure seemed to have anticipated this, for he pointed the wand in his hand slightly into the air, and a sphere shining with white light appeared, allowing everything in the vault to be illuminated again. The figure began a long search in the vault. The treasure fire spell and replication spell on him seemed to have no effect on him. Vault was filled. After an unknown amount of time, the figure finally smiled. His fingers slightly hooked the small golden cup, and the hood on his head was brushed off because of joy, revealing his handsome and ferocious face. It was Tom Riddle, Professor of Defense Against the Dark Arts at Hogwarts. Thanks to Taishi Yumitsu for the monthly ticket and other classmates for the recommendation and subscription. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 473, The Soul Collected by Zhang. It's an extremely wonderful feeling. It can be said that this is a wonderful perception that even Harry, a living Horcrux, cannot experience. Riddle, who already had two identities as a Horcrux and a main soul, when he came into contact with Hufflepuff's Gold Cup, which was Voldemort's Horcrux, he seemed to feel that another self was gradually awakening in the darkness. Along with it came those memories that clearly did not belong to Voldemort or him. There was a kind-looking woman, a scarred house elf, a brown-haired boy who went into the kitchen. And finally, he stretched out his slender fingers, pinched the handle on one side, and picked up the cup from the soft satin pad. It is amazing how this golden cup seems to engrave the memories of all who resonate with it. Hepzibah Smith, the descendant of Hufflepuff and the final owner of the Gold Cup, is probably the descendant of the brown-haired boy from the kitchen, against Hufflepuff's wishes that it remain in the Hogwarts kitchens. The other self in the Horcrux began to think based on those memories. Looking at the other self, and the feeling of loss that had penetrated his soul and that he had only just realized, made Riddle fall into trance. I recalled the conversation in the principal's office an hour ago. Do you really want to repent as the main soul? Dumbledore looked worried at that time. But he answered decisively, only in this way can I be more complete, compared to Voldemort. This is how he answered at that time. But only he himself knows what is in his heart. As he spoke, the image of Harry Potter summoning the Pluto dragon flashed through his mind. It was then that he made up his mind to do this. And just in time, the information about the Horcruxes that Harry Potter discovered yesterday allowed him to actually implement his plan. Since gaining his human form, and even the identity of a main soul, Riddle can confirm that he is now much stronger than his 17-year-old self. Furthermore, after deeply studying Muggle knowledge, those concepts were refreshing to him and greatly improved his magic. And after Voldemort's transformation, he also had some of the qualities of wizards in that field. However, without going through those arduous magical transformations and without the memories of his adulthood, he ultimately stopped at that realm, the realm that only existed between Voldemort and Dumbledore. He originally thought that by relying on the scientific knowledge he had learned that Voldemort did not understand, combined with his own magical theories, he could create a powerful destructive force to kill Voldemort, and then he could be a good teacher to him. But Harry Potter's progress made him feel a sense of crisis. He might be able to improve the destructive power of his magic step by step through scientific research and further theories. But in terms of essential improvement, the progress has been minimal. Although his path of combining science and magic has a bright future, his progress is far slower than Harry Potter's retrieving other Horcruxes to strengthen himself. Because, there's Harry Potter, a powerful living Horcrux. Those dead things are actually his weaknesses. However, he did not intend to recover the Horcruxes according to the method recorded in the book. In Advanced Dark Magic Revealed, the only way to recover the soul in the Horcrux is to regret. That is, to truly feel the killing that you go through in order to create the Horcrux, and experience it as a victim. When performing this behavior, it is equivalent to cutting out the scarred part of the soul, allowing the wounds to fit together. It is said that this feeling is so excruciatingly painful that the pain alone can destroy a wizard's sanity. This is why Riddle did not choose this method to recover the soul. And the new method comes from an existence that is ignored by everyone. In Hogwarts, due to the magic of food spiritualization, more and more ghosts regained their blood color and were no longer pearly white, gradually recovered a little bit of magic power. However, their magic power was not as good as before, and the state was very strange. It actually needs to be used as it is taken. When it is used, it needs to be refined in the magic magnetic field or by digesting spiritual food. But even so, a group of ghosts began to study magic again. Hands. And the fat monk is one of them. As Hufflepuff's resident ghost, he is also always kind. A point that other ghosts and wizards overlooked. He was a great man who almost became Pope. He combined his belief in the Bible with some magic that was unique to him. This even includes black magic. After all, the devil is also a servant of God. Found the direction from the fat monk's magic. Developed a magic called holy sacrifice. He regards his evil thoughts as demons, and himself as Satan, the lord of all demons and the source of all evil. Kill the evil side of yourself and sacrifice yourself. And now, he would regard himself in the golden cup as a demon and begin to sacrifice. I am Satan, the enemy of God, the lord of demons, the most ancient serpent. I am the sinful and fallen soul, and you serve me. Riddle sang a poem written in Hebrew. As the poetry played, his wand danced. The golden cup began to float in the air, and runes emerged from Riddle's mouth. These runes were absorbed by the golden cup one by one, and waves of ethereal sounds were heard. Riddle's voice became increasingly hoarse, the whites of his eyes turned pitch black, and illusory dragon horns appeared on his brow bones. Then there was the sound of fluttering wings, and black feathers slowly emerged from the golden cup. A Riddle with pure white eyes and snow-white hair stood in front of Riddle with black eyes and a prominent appearance. The golden cup began to slowly fall with the sound of flapping wings. When it landed on the stone floor, the white-haired Riddle spread its black wings. Dark flames began to burn from his body. From his bare feet to the tips of his hair, flames began to flow along his breathing passage and into Riddle's mouth and nose. The body of the white-haired Riddle gradually became illusory, and the cross and the golden chain began to emit little starlight and flew towards its black wings. Sacrifice is over. Chapter 474. Jerry screaming. Amidst the mountains of gold and the sea of silver, Riddle's black hair was flying. The snow-white wings wrapped around his body, turning into a faint white glow. A pale magical glow continued to emerge between his muscles. The black color in the whites of his eyes shrank back into his pupils, and the illusory dragon horns disappeared at his brow bones. The unicorn, which was known as a holy creature. He had a feeling that his blood was now also filled with pure vitality, and was also filled with a curse that entangled his soul. The integrity of his soul made him laugh uncontrollably. He regained his composure only when the pale glow disappeared. Wow! Wow! Black Cat Jerry opened his bloody mouth and screamed. What's even more terrible is that it hooked Ryan's hand tightly with its tail, as if it would stay like this unless Ryan comforted it. Oh, oh. Haha, little brat, I told you that you flipped over, you insisted on leaving that Horcrux to that Riddle. Kate laughed so hard that she shook on the sofa. Yet, Jerry is still a little girl. I need to replenish my nutrition. Panino stroked Jerry's double chin with concern, and kept muttering, poor, poor. I'm doing this for Jerry's own good. Don't you think she's cuter now? Besides, I think Jerry's weapon is enough to bear 2 Horcruxes. She won't be as cute as she used to be. Ryan said as he picked up Jerry, buried his head in his body, and took a deep breath. Okay. But why does Riddle give me the feeling of a unicorn? After looking at Jerry regretfully, Penelope suddenly thought. Her eyes were now the same silver white as Ryan's. It's clear that she is linked to Ryan's perspective. With the help of Ryan's magical vision, Riddle's first impression was after seeing the Horcrux a unicorn posing in a coquettish manner. As it happens, Penelope doesn't really like unicorns. She thinks unicorns are too showy and their personalities are not as good as others think. He is also very lustful and only wants to get close to young girls. In the 3rd year, Penelope was rejected by the unicorn because of her well-developed figure. When she saw the unicorn getting close to Kate, she thought so. Unicorns were born from similar ceremonies. Catholicism believes that has original sin, and wizards who are foolish enough to believe in God have begun to take various measures to strip away their negative emotions, which is what they see as original sin. And the unicorn was born from this idea, pure, sacred, without a trace of filth. Ryan, everyone curled his lips. But isn't the history of unicorns much older than that of Catholicism? Kate looked at Ryan in confusion. So what I'm saying is that it was born out of a similar ritual. It is never advisable to go to extremes. The most vicious curses are often born from the holy magic of transition. That's what unicorn blood is all about. That pure blood contains the most vicious curse that penetrates deep into the soul. Ryan sighed. He sighed, and it wasn't because of the unicorn. He was chosen because of Harry in Task 2. He actually chose to accept instead of reject. Ryan wanted to see what kind of evil consequences the magic of love would produce under extreme circumstances, and what path will Harry, who has this evil consequence in his hands, take? But what disappointed Ryan, a fun-loving man, was that Harry actually, Ryan sighed again. Archie. Harry sneezed thousands of miles away. Oops. Harry looked at the pudding in his hand. Because of the sneeze just now, the wand in his hand shook slightly, and accidentally split the pudding in two. You know, he had a hard time carving Ginny's name completely on the pudding. Yes, he had no choice of what to engrave on the pudding. Instead, he chose to keep engraving Ginny's name, over and over again. ZHIA, eating without me. Ron naturally picked up the pudding on the plate and swallowed it in one gulp. Wait, plates. Pudding. They can all act as mirrors. Ron swallowed the pudding and his IQ regained his upper hand. Keep your voice down. I've been here forever. And didn't I tell you that last time I was captured by a mirror beast transformed by a Horcrux? Harry stood up quickly and covered Ron's mouth. The adults all think you're a good kid. I won't lie. But don't try to hide it from me. Ron broke free from Harry's restraints and wiped his mouth in dissatisfaction. Conditions. Harry rolled his eyes. Obviously Ron didn't shout loudly at the first time. There must be some purpose. Not bad. You are worthy of being my Ron's good brother. That's the way. What are you doing? I almost forgot. Harry, as long as you promise to take me to the mirror world, everything will be fine. Ron grinned, face turned cold. This Ron is really unreliable. The mirror world is very sensitive to the creatures in the real world. If he hadn't merged with himself in the mirror world, he wouldn't have planned to enter the mirror world again. If Ron enters the mirror world, except for the evil side of him, other mirror beasts will also emerge from various reflective surfaces and launch a surprise attack on him. The reason why Harry didn't you say that the mirror beasts all remembered your information and didn't dare to approach you? That's a Horcrux. How could anyone apart from Voldemort be afraid of me? Harry retorts unhappily, but he added in his mind, also because it is the Resurrection Stone. Chapter 475 Changes. Ron was finally conquered by Harry. Another condition given by Harry, to go to Diagon Alley through the mirror. Diagon Alley, the center of London's wizarding world. The street is made up of buildings built around the oldest one shop, Ollivander's, which dates back to the 4th century BC. Even the old one was enough to attract Harry and Ron magic and history, as if it had been isolated thousands of years ago and still retains its original appearance. The current Diagon Alley is more like a futuristic city. Various props that look familiar to them are used as means of transportation, and every inch and every trace contains technology that far exceeds reality. Not to mention the current Skywalker Alchemy Workshop, which is built like clouds and marshmallows. The emergence of Walker Construction Company and the changes in Skywalker Alchemy Workshop led to changes in other shops as well. But the details were not something Harry and Ron could know, as they had never been to Diagon Alley since the holiday. So, while Ginny was working at Luna's house, Bill and Charlie were getting familiar with their new jobs, Mrs. Weasley was listening to old songs, Percy, Fred and George were busy with their own things, and Mr. Weasley was working overtime again. Harry took Ron's hand and walked into the porcelain plate on the table. The familiar darkness flashed by again, and among the thousands of doors, Harry, who was silently reciting Diagon Alley, emerged from the smooth stone wall that looked like it was made of glass. Next came Ron, who was pulled out by Harry. Cool. This is way cooler than the flu. This is stone, right? Why does it look like glass? Ron stood in front of the stone wall, looking at himself in the mirror with a puzzled look on his face. Also, are they really in Diagon Alley now? There are all kinds of strange buildings and the cobblestone ground feels slightly springy underfoot. There was also the bathtub that had just flown over their heads. If it weren't for the towering Gringotts not far away, he would have felt that he had come to the wrong place. This is a composite material from Walker Construction. This stone must be combined with the properties of glass. Harry stroked his chin, thinking, but before he could think too much, Ron's voice interrupted it. This is Florin's ice cream shop. Harry and Ron took a few steps back and observed carefully. That's right, Only Florin's ice cream shop is surrounded by thick stone walls. Harry suddenly realized, although it seemed that there was no stone wall built around Florin's ice cream shop before, Harry was not sure. That was how Florin's ice cream shop looked to him, as far as he could remember, when he first arrived in Diagon Alley. Before Harry could even sigh, Ron pulled him into this strange stone wall. Just walk straight into the middle. A text reminder will appear when you get close. When they came out, both of them held a box of ice cream in their hands. Harry's was chocolate with raspberries and crushed nut ice cream, his favorite. Where are we going? Harry ate while looking at the strange buildings around him. After knowing that this was Florin's ice cream shop, he knew that the magical animal shop not far away that seemed to be built in the tree was the one floating in the air with its wings flapping, a zee or owl shop. The building made of stones that look like pieces of cloth is Madame Malkin's robe store. The patchy crucible shop is made entirely of an unknown metal. A Quidditch boutique made of leather that looks like the same leather as the quaffle. But why haven't a leaky cauldron and Gringotts changed it all? Ron didn't answer. Like Harry, he was immersed in this Diagon Alley which was different from the past. The leaky cauldron connects to the Muggle world, and Gringotts involve financial security. It's normal that they haven't changed. Wait, I know where to go. Harry suddenly thought of something and pulled Ron to the end of the road. I knew it. 10 minutes later, Ron stood in front of Ollivander's one shop at the end of the road with a touched look on his face. Sure enough, all shops change, but Ollivander's one shop doesn't. Harry discovered that they were not the only two people here. Except for the start of the school year, the usually deserted one shop is crowded with people who seem to be mourning the past of Diagon Alley. Most of them had solemn expressions, as if they couldn't get enough of the gold-plated letters on the one shop's sign that were almost peeling off. But Ron is different. His emotions come and go quickly. Heartlessly, he began to look around, and soon he found a man in the one shop. Harry, look who that is. Ron poked Harry, who was infected by the crowd and was also staring blankly at the peeling gold sign on the door. You, hiss. Harry gasped. What did I find? Filch was actually in the one shop, and standing next to him was a dark-skinned, bulgy-eyed witch. The witch seemed very friendly to him, and would deliberately rub Filch's waist with her elbow from time to time. My darling. There's no Mrs. Norris around Filch. And he seems to be liked by witches. Ron looked at Filch sourly. Although Filch was no longer hunched, his hair was no longer sparse, and he looked much more energetic because of the magic of Fenrir's incarnation, Ron still found it hard to accept it. It's not that he can't stand people being bad, but that he is not used to changes. Especially Filch from Hogwarts, who I saw almost every day at the side, interrupted him. He acted a little timid, as if he had lived away from people for a long time, so much so that Ron and Harry were unrecognizable. He's the great Filch. The only great person who applied for the position of Hogwarts administrator is a squib. Ms. Campbell is also a great person who can stay in the wizarding world on her own. They are a perfect match. The short and fat wizard said with a red face, almost forcing himself to say it. So they're all doubts. Ron, who is always thick-skinned, said rudely. Ron. Harry poked Ron to remind him, but he seemed to have mistaken Harry for reminding him that something interesting was happening in the store. Bastards. The short and fat wizard's words attracted more and more former squibs to join. If there hadn't been wizards around who came to mourn, they would have pushed quarrel with the former squibs because of the short and fat wizard's words. He and Ron would probably be surrounded and given a good beating. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.